Let's call to order the City of Beaumont City Council meeting for Tuesday, April 18th, 2017. And
Will you call a time, please, Mayor?
it's 5:01.
Thank you.
Could have been 5 o'clock.
We don't have any place else to be, sir.
True.
I'll do.
So we'll start with the roll call, please.
Okay. Councilmember Martinez?
Here.
Councilmember Roscoe? Absent. Councilmember Lara?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Here.
And Mayor White?
Here. And there's Mr. Roscoe.
Just in time.
Just give me a second.
All right. I assume there's no public comments?
No public comments.
Okay.
I'm here, present.
Do I still need to open and close them? I ask you that every time.
You don't need to.
Okay. So before we go to closed session, Mr. Pinckney, did you want to read anything?
Council's going in closed session pursuant to item number 2, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. 2 cases. 1, the Sierra Club versus City of Beaumont, case number RIC 1613142. And the second case is Laborers International Union of North America, local union number 1184 versus City of Beaumont, case number RIC 1611674.
All right, we'll adjourn to closed session at 5:03. A Beaumont City Council meeting. Call it back to order at 6:01. Let's start. Do we have anything to report out of closed session?
The council met on item number 2, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1. 2 cases. 1 is the Sierra Club versus City of Beaumont, case number RIC 16142. Second case, Laborers International Union of North America, local union number 1184 versus City of Beaumont, case number RIC 1611674. There was no reportable action taken.
All right. We don't have any requests for excused absences. Mayor Pro Tem Carroll, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right. Any adjustments to the agenda? Okay. And we'll move on to announcements and recognitions. And we do have a proclamation for tonight. I'd like to go ahead and read that. Whereas organ tissue, marrow, and blood donation are life-giving acts recognized worldwide as expressions of compassion to those in need, whereas more than 118,000 individuals nationwide and more than 21,000 in California are currently on the National Organ Transplant Waiting List, and on an average 22 people die each day while waiting due to the shortage of donated organs. Whereas the need for donated organs is especially urgent in Hispanic and African American communities. Whereas more than 600,000 units of blood per year are needed to meet the need in California. Whereas any given time, 6,000 patients are in need of volunteer marrow donors. Whereas a single individual's donation of the heart, lungs, liver, kidneys, pancreas, and small intestine can save up to 8 lives. Donation of tissue can save and heal the lives of up to 50 others, and a single blood donation can help 3 people in need. Whereas millions of lives each year are saved and healed by donors of organs, tissue, marrow, and blood. Whereas the spirit of giving and decision to donate are not restricted by age or medical condition. Whereas nearly 13 million Californians have signed up with the state-authorized Donate Life California Registry to ensure their wishes to be organ, eye, and tissue donors are honored. Whereas California residents can sign up with the Donate Life California Registry when applying for or renewing their driver's license or ID cards at the California Department of Motor Vehicles. Now, therefore, I, Lloyd White, Mayor of the City of Beaumont, on behalf of the entire City Council, do hereby proclaim the month of April to be DMV Donate Life California Month in the City of Beaumont, And in doing so, we encourage residents to check yes when applying for or renewing their driver's license or ID card. And we have a recipient for this.
Mayor White and City Council members, I truly appreciate the support of the City of Beaumont for April's DMV Donate Life California Month. As a donor mom, knowing that something positive has come from Xavier's passing in such a tragic time in our family's life has been comforting. He was only 13 months when he passed, but he was able to save at least 5 lives, donating both kidneys, his heart, pancreas, liver, and small intestine. I would also like to invite the mayor, city council members, and audience to join me at the 15th annual Donate Life Run Walk on Saturday, April 29th. If you're interested, please let me know, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with each of you today regarding the importance of donation and transplantation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Where is the run walk?
It's at Cal State Fullerton
Okay.
next Saturday.
And it starts in the morning then?
Yes, it starts at 7 a.m.
Okay.
There's a family festival during the day. The actual walk starts at 9 a.m. and then afterwards they continue the family festival.
Great. Thank you. All right, we'll move to public comments. I'll open up public comment section at 6:06. Any one person may address the city council on any matter not on this agenda. If you wish to speak, please fill out a public comment form provided at the back table and give to the city clerk. There's a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to another person. State law prohibits the council from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. And who do we have up first?
First speaker is Craig Chester.
I never got a call on my comments from last council meeting on homelessness. That's been addressed, if it's on the agenda, or how this whole thing works.
We have a update for you. At the end of public comments, we'll go ahead and provide you with some feedback and update that we have on that.
So just wait till after public comments and you'll...
Yeah, let's get through the rest of the public
appreciate it.
comments and then we'll do that. Thank you.
Next is Arlene Boyd.
Mayor, City Council, my name is Arlene Boyd, and I am the president of the Beaumont Women's Club. I wanted to make sure that you had received your invitation because we will be celebrating the Women's Community Center Clubhouse being open 100 years in May. So in conjunction with Parks and Rec and the Women's Club will be hosting a celebration. As part of that, we've created a little background of some of the key accomplishments that the Women's Club have been able to meet, as well as things that have gone on within the clubhouse over the last 100 years. So I've got a copy for each of you. I want to share that because I think it'll give you some fun facts to know about the clubhouse. So
Thank you, Ms. Boyd. And what time is the event?
it's 9:30 to 11
Okay,
on Saturday, May 13.
thank you.
Sure.
Next speaker is Judy Bingham.
Judy Bingham, 115 Minnesota. Mayor White and council members, since you considered it the citizens' responsibility to find out why Laserfish was never accessible to the citizens, and I never got an answer from my record request on the item, I contacted a company to get some information. It appears the city only purchased a starter pack that came with 10 accesses. Parameters can be set to kick out a user after a specified amount of time, but either Beaumont doesn't want to do it or they don't have their system set up properly. This other company also noticed that Beaumont has a 2013 version. What's up with that? Pirated copy? I'd like to know. Laserfish standard packet with 25 user access is $25,000. Mid-range pack with 50 users is $35,000, and unlimited is $45,000. Just a reminder to everyone, this month it's been 2 years since the raids. So stop congratulating yourselves. You still have the same corrupt staff.
Ms. Bingham, we have an update on the Laserfish also. We'll do that at the end of the public comments as well.
Why did I waste my time?
No other speakers.
No other speakers? Okay, we'll close public comments at 6:10. And can we talk about the homeless?
You bet. Chief.
Yeah, so because this is not an agendized item, we can have brief comments in response to the public inquiry.
But we can, as it says that we'll address in future meetings, we can address it without having it be an agenda item, correct? Not us, but the staff can address the question.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
It says that we can't discuss this, but we would be getting back to them at either at a future meeting or
What item are you looking at on the
public
agenda?
comments. Well, actually, it's not on here anymore.
Okay, so under the Brown Act, the staff and the city can respond briefly,
Okay.
but we can't get into a 5-minute conversation about an item that's not on the agenda.
So if we need to go there, then we need to
Put it on the
request it
agenda.
on the
yeah.
next agenda. Okay, thank you.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Just to give a quick update on the Riverside County point-in-time homeless count. That is a nationwide count that every county does at the same time so that a homeless didn't move from, let's say, Arizona and then travel to Beaumont and they're counted twice. So all counties do the count at the same time. And in this time, it was January 24th, 2017. And in Riverside County, there's 2,413 homeless people. And in the city of Beaumont, currently there's 18, which is 0.75, so less than 1% of the county's homeless call Beaumont home. And of that, there's 0 veterans, 0 families with children, 0 developmentally disabled homeless currently in Beaumont. And so the reason I mention that is what our community policing team has done in conjunction with some of our other sworn and non-sworn personnel is really try to make an impact in the homeless situation. And so we partnered with the Highway Patrol. We have issues with our off-ramps and with begging and those issues. We partnered with local businesses, the Veterans Administration. We've paired up previously a homeless veteran with the VA and got them into the treatment program, and they're no longer homeless in this city. I couldn't tell you really what happened with them after that, but the officers did their job. And so our transient calls are down 36%. Our begging calls increased by 1. And what we do is we compare, the exact same time of this year with the exact same time of last year. So we're really talking apples to apples. We're not done there. We've tried to educate the public about giving to organizations that help the homeless rather than perpetuating social crimes as far as drug use or alcohol abuse. That was where most of our homeless claim they became homeless, was through substance abuse. And of course we partner and help support any church or faith-based organization that has a program with homeless. We reach out and work with them. So while the problem is not solved, because we want the number to be 0, we certainly managed it and kept the community safe from any of that type of behavior the best we can.
I'd like to ask a question or two if I'm going, no?
No.
Okay.
Because the Brown Act allows you to make brief comments in response to questions by the public, but what you can't do is get into a give and take, because if you're going to get into that kind of dialogue, then you have to notice it in case people that are interested in the subject of homelessness want to be here. They have to give
Okay.
notice.
Is there any consensus on council to put this on as a discussion item on the future agenda?
I think we probably need to, so we can address the public.
Okay,
Sure.
okay.
Okay with that.
Yeah, I've
Let's do
asked,
that then.
Time.
Okay, thanks, Chief. And then we have another update to the Laserfish issue.
you betcha. Staff did begin talking with Laserfish WebLink after the last series of complaints that we had that came in. And again, as stated, our version is an old version. It's a 2013. And as a result, it poorly handles multiple logins, as well as it's subject to web crawlers, and those are bots that spend their time crawling around the web, indexing various public sites and things like that. So it's particularly susceptible to those log jams. So we did determine with WebLink that we do have the system capacity to be able to accommodate an update. So they've got us authorized for the hours, and they've got us scheduled to do the update. We asked them to give us some cost associated with trying to add some additional licenses. Basically, the next pack would be about another $10,000 of a one-time expense to add the software and the licensing capacity. Plus, there'd be an additional $2,000 a year on annualized maintenance for those expanded licenses. We're spending about $8,000 a year right now with them for maintenance. So what we are planning to try is to get the system update in place. Let's see if that then handles the web crawler situation. It also has the enhanced capabilities that allow us to be able to log people out after a certain amount of time if it's not being used. So we're going to try that. We're going to recommend trying that and see what we can do before we try to contract for some additional services.
Okay, Mr. Pinckney, I'm not really trying to challenge you here, but if that was on a city manager's report, could we have asked follow-up questions? Because I think that's where it was scheduled. I just moved it up to address it now.
Yeah, so the best practice is under the city manager's report, as Todd often does, he'll list items that he's going to discuss, and then there's notice given on the item. But if it's not agendized, so for example, if he gave that report as a city manager report and you had a quick follow-up question that was brief, it'd probably be okay. But what you clearly can't do is get into a back and forth between the council and a member of the staff on an item that's not on the agenda. Because then you get into forming decisions and opinions as a council without giving the public notice.
Okay, what's the time frame as far as when it'll be updated, do you think?
I don't have a specific. We're in as soon as possible. They're supposed to get to it. So I can get some updates from us on.
And if this goes over your budgeted approval, I personally would like to bring it back to council.
Sure.
Okay.
And one other comment, that was clearly more of an informational item than a decision-making item for the council, I think.
Got it.
So.
Okay. All right, let's move on to the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are taken as one action item unless an item is pulled for further discussion here or at the end of action items. Approval of all ordinances and resolutions to be read by title only. Do we have any items that need to be pulled?
I would like to pull item 15.
15? Okay.
I have item 4, and then a quick question for 16.
So we'll begin by pulling items 4, 15, and 16. Any others? Okay, do I have a motion for the balance?
So move.
I need a second.
I'll second.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lara?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
And Mayor White?
Yes. Do we have any public comments on the consent calendar?
On 15, which is what you pulled already.
Okay, good. All right, so we'll start with item number 4.
Nicole, there's just a little cleanup there.
Yes,
Notice that.
we found the typo in the motions, and it's already been corrected.
Okay.
So if you'd like to approve with the motion, with the correction,
Okay.
then we can approve.
What is the correction? Just so
It
we-
says Mayor White twice.
Oh,
instead of
Mayor Pro Tem
Carroll.
White instead of Mayor Pro Tem Carroll.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was just a little, and if you could do me a favor, I'd like to add to my council report that I did attend the the Taste of the Past and the Vietnam Memorial. So-
Okay, I'll make sure that was
That
stated in
after
there,
I-
and I'll
but that's-
verify.
Okay, so I so move to approve the minutes with those amendments.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes?
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
And Mayor White?
Yes. And now for item 15, we'll go ahead and open public comments at 6:20.
Judy Bingham?
Judy Bingham, 115 Minnesota. The audit of the 2015 financial statements was released a year late with a disclaimer of opinion because the city refused to remove the $60 million in forged sewer machinery and equipment from their financial statements. The auditing firm of Van Lant and Fankhanel attempted to describe the severity of the city's financial situation and the importance of the audit. But, and the only place I've seen it is in the Audit and Finance Committee, and they laughed it off. The state controllers require cities to submit their yearly financial transaction reports within 7 months of the close of the fiscal year. The city of Beaumont submitted their 2016 financial statements 3 weeks past the 7-month due date with the same forged numbers that elicited a disclaimer of opinion on the 2016 audit. I noticed the new contract with Van Lant and Fankhanel provides services only to the city of Beaumont City and the Beaumont Transit System for the year ending June 30th, 2016. The city of Beaumont has a utility authority that contains the sewer plant and the financing authority that includes the city's bonds. The 2015 contract specifically included the Beaumont Utility Authority for the estimated cost of $3,500. So where are they? It's not included here.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments?
No other speakers.
So we'll close the public comments at 6:23. And Ms. Carroll, you pulled this. Did you want to speak on this issue?
Yes, I just have a couple of questions for Milana, if I could, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Milana, as I understand it, the agreement with VLF will be for all of the business of the city, and the only one that's separate is the transit as a separate piece of the audit? As
Correct.
two separate entities, correct?
Correct. They'll be doing a complete citywide audit, which includes all the different components, and then issuing a separate statement only of the transit authority as required by RCTC.
Okay, because there's been some, so the sewer and everything will be included in the city, and then the transit will be the only independent piece.
Right, citywide's going to include everything, including transit as well, but sewer will be in it, the financing authority, it'll be a complete citywide audit. And the state controller's office has confirmed with me that they do not need a separate audited financial statement for the financing authority, nor do they need one for the utility authority. And so we're just going to be submitting them the CAFR for the entire citywide, and they said they would accept that.
Okay, thank you. And could you tell me what you hope the timeline will be on the follow-up audits? And I understand that you can't control everything, but
My goal is to get the audit started immediately, get them in here, let's get it rolling, and I would have a goal to have it issued by the end of June so that we can then work on the contract for fiscal 17 and have that audit performed in October, and it would be timely.
And if we could do that, then we would be on the same regular basis as every other city.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Any other comments or questions? No, that would be great, because it'd be the first time that we got some audits done less than a year after the close dates of the
Yes.
audits. So if you could do it by July 1st, that'd be great.
Yes.
And can you address the 3 weeks of the transaction report?
Yes, the state controller's office does require transactional reports on several different levels with several different pieces of the city that are due all at different times. The city-wide one is due within 7 months. In talking to the consultant that was preparing the actual forms, there was a change in the guidelines in California where they required additional documentation, which we didn't have yet. So we discussed it and knew that there was a 21-day grace period where there would be no repercussions to the city. So we utilized those 21 days in order to file something that was more complete. We still have one more piece to forward to them, but other than that, we have a complete filing.
Great. Thank you. If there's no other comments, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I'll make a motion to approve item 15.
I'll second.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Item number 16, I think, Mr. Martinez, you pulled that one?
Yeah, it was just a real quick question. I just, they had a 36-month contract for the Biz Hub and then 60 for the page wide.
Correct.
So just what was the plan there? We were going to.
They did offer us a 36-month option on the page wide, but it was $816 a month. We just were comparing costs, and this is a machine that, according to Public Works and the Planning Department, is going to be utilized in excess of 3 years. These don't get replaced as often as your copying machines and your leases. It isn't something that will be utilized longer. It has a longer lifespan.
So if you decided at the 3 months to switch contracts with the Minolta part, you could still keep the page wide going?
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Yes.
That's all.
There are two separate lease agreements in the packet
Okay.
for that reason.
That makes sense. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I move that we pass item number 16.
I second.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Moving along.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes.
I know, I'm sorry.
All right, we'll move on to action items and public hearings request. Number 17, July 4th event.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What you have for you tonight is the July 4th event that we would like to put on this summer. We did come back and do one last year. I think it went off pretty well with a limited budget. We're able to put this in the budget this year. So the funds are currently in the Community Services Department Recreation side of the budget. We will do similar as last year with the $1 swimming and the fellowship and the not fellowship in the past. Raceway Ministries will have their fellowship tent out there. Beaumont Chamber was going to be doing the market night, but apparently they're not going to be able to handle it this year, so they've passed it to the Beaumont Rotary. Otherwise, the event would be almost mirrored as last year, except the fireworks are going to get pushed up to an electronic fired event, which our fire marshals asked us to do. He wanted to have us get out of the manual shot show, so it's about a $20,000 fireworks show this year, which will fit into that budget. Beaumont Cherry Valley Recreation Park District has donated the same amount of money as last year. They want a partnership and do the same thing as they did last year, so I'm just looking that we can move forward and go ahead and get this event planned out.
Outstanding. Were there any public comments on this one? I should have asked you before. Okay, are there any questions or comments for staff?
Hi, come on. Can I have a lineup?
What's that?
lineup?
Not yet. I want you guys to approve this first before we went surfing and looking. We'll take the 35,000 out of the community services department budget, and the other 7,500 we can add to that and push that up a little bit, and we can see what we can get as far as some quality entertainment. We'll get the 3 bids as we did before, and see what we can get in here for.
I found a band that plays really good 80s music.
Send me their info.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
I think our headliner, though, was going to be the Beaumont City Council Barbershop.
Right. There is 5 of you, and yeah, that's be
We want
perfect.
people to show up.
Well, they will. Believe me, they'll show up.
Followed by the comedy act of Todd Pardon.
Oh, now that thing's sold out. We don't have enough people.
Yeah.
All right, are there any other questions or comments? All right.
Actually, I'll give you the card.
I'll make a motion to approve the community service department to proceed with the event planning. Motion?
I'll second that.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye. I waited this time.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. On item 18, do we have public comments?
We do.
Okay, so I'll open the public comments for item 18 at 6:30.
Judy Bingham?
Judy Bingham, this is item 18? I thought it was maximum benefit.
That's what I have also, maximum benefit.
Oh, good.
Well, we've passed it, right?
Which I know we're on.
Right now.
Just starting
Public
it.
comment.
On June the 21st, Dudick was awarded $89,000 for groundwater and surface monitoring. Dudick was to conduct the first semi-annual groundwater monitoring in June 2016, and again around October or November 2016. Dudick has never been paid, and it's been almost a year. All of a sudden, Webb took over the reporting, and they did the report to the state, to Santa Ana Regional. So why wasn't Dudick allowed to proceed in the first place? And, you know, this report has been done several times. The first time by Wildermuth in 2014. That's even included in Dudick's proposal. So I'm just confused about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any others?
No.
I'll close public comments at 6:32. Mr. Jakar, I hope you will unconfuse us.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. That is correct. We did award a contract for monitoring of surface water and wells. There are 33 wells, and there are 7 stations that surface water stations that we monitor to Durac last year. Durac is also doing the similar work for Yucaipa Valley Water District. And both City of Beaumont and Yucaipa Valley Water District are responsible agencies to collect data and report that every year on April 15th to the board. The last year, the data for the previous year, prior to I got here in 2016, and there was another consultant, I believe it was Wildermuth, that was collecting some of the data. We did finish collecting that data. Durac did submit that data last year in April. We were late, I believe it was in May that we submitted the data. I did talk to the board and let them know the circumstances for that. This year we did collect last year, Durac collected the data for last year. They have submitted that to the board on the 15th as it required to be submitted. The data that the item in front of you is to amend the original contract that we awarded to them last year and continue the same work for this year. And it's not fiscal year, it's the whole year, 2016. And then they'll resubmit that data to the board on April 15th of next year, 2017. They'll submit the data on 2018. And then data is required to be collected by both Yucaipa Valley Water District and City of Beaumont. And Yucaipa Valley Water District is the lead agency that submits the data. We've agreed with them to use the same consultant. It's easier for collecting the data and also for reporting and submitting. And DUREC is qualified to collect the data and submit the data. And this year they're also using DUREC, so we're also recommending that you award the contract to DUREC to do the job. Webb and Associates never collected the data or submitted the data for this particular program. And this has to do with the permit that was issued back in 2014, and the permit number is R8-2014-005. That's the permit under which we're required to collect data from wells. There is different type of data that we collect, the quality of the water, the depth of the water. Same thing with surface monitoring. We have seven stations in 4 different locations. We collect the data and we report that to the board every year. So staff is recommending awarding the contract to DUREC for the $89,542 for the current fiscal year.
Okay. Do we have any questions or comments? Did we get a public records request for this one?
Yes.
Okay, let's take that first, then we'll take the questions and comments. So I'll reopen public records request at 6:35.
Mr. Blair Ball?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, for indulging me in this few minutes. I was wondering if maybe you might want to check with the San Gregorio Pass Water Agency to see if this is an overlap of monitoring that we do in the area, and if so, that information may already be available to you, because we do monitor wells and so forth, so it might be worth looking into that. Thank you.
Thank you. And before we go to comment, I'll close public records at public comments at 6:36. And Mr. Jakar, can you respond to Mr. Ball's comment, Dr. Ball's comment?
The locations that we have to collect the data from, 33 specified locations, and they're listed in the contract for DUREC. And there are 7 places that we have to collect data on surface monitoring. I can look at the data that they have and see if that overlaps with our data, and if some of the data is useful for what we need to do. That'll reduce the contract that we have, and I can do that, and I can provide the information to council at a later date.
That'd be great. Thanks. Mr. Orozco, you had some questions.
It's kind of related to that too as well. To add to that, in terms of reporting, this is a yearly thing, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I mean, this is something that has to be done, and we are the lead agency in terms of having to provide this information. So this is necessary reporting that has to be completed. Correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and from my understanding, like you stated, the last reporting was given to us by another company, who then left it incomplete or almost done, and then DUDEC came in, right, and they completed it, they did the analysis, and they submitted it?
Yes.
Okay. What was that, at that time, was it reduced as well because most of the data was collected already?
Yeah, so the original contract that we did for the first I think it was 2015 fiscal year was a lot less. It was just mostly reporting. So we reported the data that we already had, and they actually put it into the table that needed to be in, and then just submitted it.
Do you remember the price?
I believe it was around 20-some thousand. I can look it up.
Okay.
But this one is for the full entire year of collection of the data, and then testing and everything else that goes with it.
And if the data is pretty much similar to the water agency, they'll go back and reduce the price, correct, a little bit?
Yes, if there is wells that are being monitored and the data that is being collected is the same, then we can do that. The other issue is sampling. So when we take a sample, the sample has to be brought to the city. We have a place where it's stored, so we have to sign for the integrity of the sample, and that's another issue.
That's another issue as well.
Yes,
okay.
I will look into it. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do we know who does their sampling?
No, but I can find out and see, and also what information that they collect from that sample.
Maybe next time in the future, Dr. Ball can go back and share with his agency. If we do use the same, maybe we can piggyback off each other and get a lesser bill for, maybe working with the water agency in terms of doing the testing together. If they certify it together, we can piggyback off the price.
And that's something we'll look into.
Save each other some money. Okay.
I'm sorry. Question?
Are you all done? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Lara.
Was Dudek paid for the services they provided the city last year?
Yes, they bill monthly, and then, we pay them monthly. So it's not a one bill that comes in all at the same time. Every month they submit an invoice, and we review the invoice and we pay them.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All right, I move to approve item 18.
I'll second.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Next item is number 19, award of contract to Safe USA from Ontario, California for the traffic striping contract. Do we have any public comments on this item?
No.
Okay.
Mayor and council members, due to the rainy season that we have had in the last 6 months, the striping is in a very bad shape. We've looked around to see what other city has awarded contracts, and we found out Highland has awarded a similar contract that we need to look into. So the state law allows us to piggyback off of another agency's contract. So in this case, that's what we're doing. They did award the project based on the state law, and they went through the bidding process, and this company, USA, was the lowest bidder. We went through and talked to them, and we're using the same unit prices that they gave to City of Highland for our contract, and we're recommending that the contract limit be at $75,000. That'll give us substantial amount of striping, and that's the striping on the street, the yellow lines that you see and the white lines and the crossbars, and some of the other information that we put on the streets, and they'll be striping that in the next 2 or 3 months.
So when you talk about unit pricing, that's a price per length or a distance or an area that needs to be striped?
Yeah, so what we will do is before we have them start work, we will calculate the quantities with them, and then we'll verify that that's the number of feet that they.
And since that doesn't vary from city to city, and the fact that Highland already did a competitive bid process, then we're not competitively bidding this project, correct?
No, so state law allows us to piggyback as long as they have done a competitive bidding process, because they have streets just like we have, and they're striping in the same manner, and it's the same width of the line and the same length of the line that they're putting in. So yellow lines, they have the yellow lines for the center, and then they have the white lines for the lanes, and so similar units, and then the same unit price that they're giving us.
Okay, and how much time are we saving by going through this process as opposed to RFP and competitive bid?
But we're saving at least 2 months, and we're also saving about $15,000 in staff cost to go through that process, preparing the bids, responding to the request for information, and all the other stuff.
And when do you estimate the striping will begin?
Within 15 days.
Okay. Mr. Roscoe?
Yeah. Are we going, is it going to be every street, or do we have a priority list of that's going to be identified?
This is our first year that we're doing this, so we want to see how far the 75,000 take us. So we'll report back to the city council on what happened and what streets we got done, how much of the work we got done. So it's something that we've calculated, we've guessed at what we think it's going to be, but it's most of the major streets that have the yellow striping and the white lines dividing the lanes. But then there's other thermoplast. There's other type of striping that we need to do.
Are you or staff going to identify, let's say we say it's going to be 75% of the city? Are you going to say, well, start here first, do these first, and then, will our staff identify what's a priority first, and then whatever's left over, or if we make it to, let's say, the majority of the streets? I mean, do you have an idea of how much we're going to get out of that 75?
We believe we'll get most of the high priority. That's where the high traffic is, out of that 75,000.
Okay.
So that's what our goal is, to start with the streets that have the most traffic, and then just work towards the streets that have lesser traffic.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Martinez.
So, Mr. Jakar, I'm just a little concerned about using the piggyback process consistently. And I can see the savings in time. I mean, that speaks for itself. So can I assume that you would be using this type of process like the rainy season came where it really, we need something now, but in the future, kind of weighing the option of piggyback versus the RFP process?
And
I just don't want to get into a trend. I think that's what I'm worried about.
And it's a good question. The piggyback process only works if you can get the same stuff. So if we're buying a Ford pickup or if you're buying a Chevy pickup and that's what is specified in the contract that somebody else got and that's what you need, then you can do a piggyback contract. If we were going out to do, for example, the 8th Street project, we can't piggyback. That's not something that's similar in another city. The amount of work, the length, and the size of sidewalk is different in every location. So we can't do that. So it's very few contracts that allows us to use that piggyback method, and we save money, we save time, and we save money. But in this case, we can do that with the striping contract. We can do that with purchase of a vehicle. We can do that with purchase of equipment. But we really can't do that with the water contract for tree trimming, for example, or any other services. So it's very limited in scope.
Okay, well, I commend you on using that type of approach to save us some money.
Good job.
Apply to this situation, so thank you for that.
Mrs. Carroll, any questions?
Yes. We're hoping to do some work on some streets within the city. So there's no crossover here of where we're going to be doing striping and then be doing fixing of the roads afterwards, and then we have to go back and redo the work. I haven't really matched up the roads, but you would know that in your head if there was any crossover.
This is just paint. Most of it, if the street is not in a good shape, we don't do the expensive method, which is doing thermoplast. What we do is we just stripe it with paint. For public safety, even if the project was going to be in construction in the next 6 or 7 months, this will be something we would do because it's a safety measure that we need to take care of. Striping is important as people travel to be able to see the lines. Most cities do at least 2 times a year. So this lasts 6 months to 8 months, but at least once a year we're supposed to stripe most of the city. So this only is good for another year or so.
So there's no concern with
No.
that overlapping of any of the future work we hope to do on the roads that would be undone, so to speak.
No, there isn't any project that's planned within like a month.
Okay.
We'll go out, stripe, and then rip the asphalt out.
I have one more question regarding Oak Valley. So now everyone who knows that that's 2 lanes, we're going to actually have a stripe down the middle to go and drive 2 lanes? Okay.
Yeah,
That is a very confusing intersection. I know most of us know about that one.
And that will take a while because we do have to do a striping plan for that. Because that's a change from 1 lane to 2 lane.
Okay.
So that will come in about a month and a half. We'll have to do the plan first to make sure everything that we put is in the right place.
Okay, great.
Will that come to council?
No, the plan will
Okay.
come to council. Staff.
All right, are there any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to award the contract to Safe USA for traffic striping and pavement, marking in the amount of $75,000.
Go ahead.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. Item 21 is award of contract to Johnson Power with contract of $88,545.55 for the replacement of generator at the Beaumont Police Department and repairs to the transit building generator.
Mayor, I think we skipped 20.
I decided to go out of order. Okay. You guys waited till I read the whole thing.
I didn't want to interrupt.
You off.
I thought that's why I had the old mayor sit next to me to catch me on those
I was
guys.
just about ready to say something. I apologize.
Item 20, request for budget adjustment. That's all I have here. Is there more I'm supposed to be reading?
Next page.
Okay.
Okay.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. We have our first request, well, this is actually our third request for budget adjustments for the fiscal 17 year. The first piece is just a reallocation. Normally, if a department has a shift within its own budget, we don't bring it to council, but in this particular case, because of the dollar amount, wanted to bring it to your attention. The police department is in need of a generator that is in accordance with all the rules, regulations of AQMD. So it needs to be replaced. It's a significant cost to the department, but they do have budget room in shifting some of their departmental budgets around in order to cover the cost. So the first piece of the staff report is to have those adjustments made to cover the $60,000 cost of the generator. Still a net of no change in the budget in total. The second part is a general fund allocation. We've been doing analysis of the vehicles in the departments. Some of them are getting quite elderly. Some of them are having a hard time running. We're having difficulty getting some of the repairs done. It's starting to cost more, and they're down more often than they're on the street. With that in mind, we wanted to request that council allow us to purchase these vehicles this year, taking it out of the contingency. The contingency was quite large in the budget for this year, and we're hoping that we won't need to spend nearly that much, which would then leave us the room in order to purchase these vehicles. We made a list of the vehicles that would be retired, and then we would be getting replacement trucks for those. Also, we'd be getting 2 additional trucks for staff that we have hired this year for the sewer plant. There are not any vehicles other than the city van that is available for them to use during the day to do their jobs properly. If they need to go over to the sewer plant or they need to go and check out one of the lift stations or anything like that, they don't have another city vehicle available to them. So we would also need to get 2 additional trucks for that. When you put all of these together, it would mean that we need to release a total of, it is $357,000 for all of the vehicles that we need to replace or add to our fleet. In addition to that, we also are asking for the 2016 fiscal year audit, which wasn't budgeted. Well, it was budgeted, but the 2015 audit wasn't budgeted, but has to be paid for. The timing on that, to have that also be released from the contingency budget. So that also would be another $36,500. That would leave our contingency balance still in place of $303,000 from now until the end of June, if we still needed to touch it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Before comments, do we have any public comments on this one?
None.
Okay. Does anybody have comments or questions? I have one. The Ford Ranger with 41,000 miles, is that a typo?
No, they're having difficulty with it. Sometimes you get a vehicle that just doesn't want to run like the others. So I think that one has just been giving them some grief.
It's also in community services, so it's trying to pull trailers and so it's underpowered for that as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If there's no other questions or comments, then I'll entertain a motion.
I do have one question, Mayor.
Okay.
Just on the public safety, those are for police use?
Yes.
I was under the impression that we were leasing on some of those. Am I wrong?
No, some we are. And then if we could, in part of the regular replacement process, we were looking at leasing to keep the cost down. And so that's what we did last year. But prior to that, they weren't using leases for that purpose. It's better because of how much they're driven and the way that they're driven if we purchase them outright than to try and stretch out the payments as much as possible. So we're looking at trying to change up the way we budget, where we can say we have one-time costs or we have recurring costs. And while you can budget a lower dollar amount with a lease, the length of the lease may not make sense based on what the vehicle's being used for.
And I appreciate the discounts.
Absolutely.
I saw that on the invoice. That's
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll.
What will you do with the vehicles? You're going to add vehicles, so, for example, the Ford Ranger with 41,000 miles, what will you do with problem vehicles like that?
Well, we will still try to sell them, and then whatever those proceeds are, then will come in to offset some cost, at whatever point that's done. We'll follow the regular ordinance for disposing of vehicles and other assets of the city.
Okay.
Any other questions?
One of the things on selling used or retired equipment, there's some online list services now that may be available. We were using those in some of the cities I worked in the past, and those are pretty neat because you just put them online and you get online quotes. So we can investigate some of those things as well.
Right, and we did do that, I believe, last year. We had a few, I want to say one vehicle or maybe two that we used that on. So we'll follow the same line.
Thank you. I move to approve item number 20.
I'll second.
Councilmember Martinez?
yes.
Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. So item 21, award of contract to Johnson Power. Do we have any public comments on this one?
Not on this item.
Okay.
Mayor, council member, this contract is to replace one emergency generator and fix another one. We have a emergency generator at police department that's close to the school, and it requires upgrades. And we really can't upgrade because of the age of the generator, so we're recommending replacing that generator. In addition to that, there's another generator at Transit, was purchased in 2005, but it's missing some equipment. It's missing an air filter, and we're also recommending that we complete that project by putting the air filter on that generator. We did go out to bid. We got 3 bids for the replacement, and Johnson Power was the lowest, and we got 2 bids for the retrofit, and Johnson Power was also lowest on that. So we're recommending awarding the contract to them for $88,545.55. That includes my report. Thanks.
So the one on the transit building, you're just repairing, so it's up to par, correct?
It's not actually a repair, it's a retrofit because the unit is new. It's actually never been used. But because it's missing that equipment, it's not permitted. So we need to put the filter on, and then it'll comply with the air quality.
Okay, great. Questions, Mr. Lara?
The backup generator that we're going to be doing, that's on the building now that's new, that we're adding the filter to, that's the backup generator for our communications center?
The one on Transit?
Yes.
There's one on Transit that's backup for also our computer system.
And we haven't used that for 2 years.
Yeah, we haven't used it. It has never been fired up.
My point, and I apologize, my point is I'm glad to see that we're starting to repair these items, to get them back online, and invest the money to get equipment that we've paid for and spent a lot of money for that hasn't been in use for a while, so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll.
I remember like 2013, 2012, that there were a lot of discussions because we had generators that were not compliant with AQMD. They were too close to the school, et cetera. Is this the same generator with the police department that goes all the way back to like 2012 that was a problem that we just never resolved it back then?
It's the same generator, and we did get extension on some of that installed, the repairs. So, but we're running out of the extensions on this, so we need to replace it.
Actually, I think just last week I got a letter from AQMD stating that that generator over at PD is now considered out of compliance. There's no more extensions on it.
It's an antique, huh?
Because I remember those discussions, we were going to be fined, it was too close to the school, and, and I just thought that at some point that had been resolved, but this is the same issue, correct?
This is the same issue, yeah. And these are emergency generators, so they don't really run until there's an outage. So it's not something that's constantly running. It's just that when they do run,
Yeah.
they need to be in compliance with the state laws.
I just wanted to make sure I was connecting the dots and that this is a problem that goes back a while and we're finally getting to resolve it, and not that we're just redoing something that was just done not that long ago. So thank you.
Mr. Martinez, Mr. Roscoe, do you have any questions? Okay.
Just real quickly, the police generator, the 55 horsepower, that's what they need? I mean, they don't need anything bigger than that? That looks pretty good, because I noticed it didn't have a filter. I didn't know if it, the way the report read. I don't, and maybe it's just, I don't even need to ask that. That's just too specific. I do want to know on the contingency, though. On the contingency money, is that for like miscellaneous?
Yeah, that's where, if anything comes up as we're wiring them up or we're hooking them up, especially the one that hasn't been fired.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about, the 10 years new one. So, okay. That's all. Thank you.
Mr. Pardon, could you explain the contingency part of the budget? Because it's not just for this area of the operations, right? It's a contingency for anything, correct?
Right, the contingency portion of the budget is there in the event that there's any unforeseen or additional needs that crop up during the course of the year.
Okay.
And if it isn't used, it just resorts back?
It goes back into any expenditures, whether they're on the contingency or any of the regular line items in the various funds, at the end of the year that aren't spent, they're swept into our fund balance, and most of them should sweep into unrestricted balance, which means that you've got available cash to be in the next year that is not obligated or committed to pay for something.
Thank you.
Thank you. I need a motion on that item.
I make a motion that we approve the contingency budget for item 21. Thank you.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Roscoe?
That's what
Aye.
I hesitated on that. I didn't know.
Yeah, we need, did you mean to, both items? We have two items.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. For, on item 20, I'll rephrase that. I make a motion to approve the contingency funds for item number 1 for both sub-item 1, which is to award the contract to replace the existing emergency generator, and for sub-item number 2, which is to award the contract to install the generator.
Yeah, it's the air filter. Yeah, item 2 is the air filter to transit. Item 1 is the replacement generator.
Okay, I'm reading it from there, and I didn't read fast enough. To replace the air filter for item 2. Is that clear enough, Nicole?
I believe so, if you guys agree.
All right.
Well,
I can read the whole.
I have a question here, though. I must be missing something, but I don't see contingency in this item. That's from the item before, correct?
This wasn't budgeted for, though, correct?
There is contingency in the fiscal impact. There is a contingency, and then item prior to that also talk about contingency, but there's different contingencies.
Okay.
The budget contingency, in order for the police department to cover the cost of their generator, that was in the previous item. So as far as having their budget to be balanced properly to cover it.
Okay.
That was the budget.
So this item is not, the contingency issue's already been addressed in the other item.
Right. This has a.
This is now we're spending money that's been approved to spend.
All right.
Okay.
Yes.
That's where I was getting confused.
Well, there was an additional $3,100.
Yeah, but that's
How would
coming
you
out
like
of
me to word it?
transit.
Right. Do you have a motion and a second?
I have a motion from Carol.
I'll second that.
Second her amendment. Thank you. Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. All right. Item 22. Approval of finance plan and amendments of contracts to various consultants for the Potrero Interchange Project. I'm sure we have some public comments on this one.
Yes, we do.
So I'll open the public comments at 7:04.
First speaker, Judy Bingham.
I know I said public records, don't get too
Yeah,
excited.
because I've done plenty of them on this. Judy Bingham, 115 Minnesota. The Potrero interchange scam was used to embezzle $13 million out of the city. But that was the old council, wasn't it? And before the FBI raids and the SEC subpoenas. On August the 16th, 2016, with the new council in place and the new lawyers and consultants, the Potrero interchange scam was resurrected in full glory. Beaumont Staff and Council declared that Potrero was exigent circumstances, so state laws required public bidding was not followed. The August 2016 staff report stated, Mark Thomas and Company has completed 99% of the design for Phase 1 and 65% of the design for Phase 2. Beaumont staff funneled Mark Thomas and Company $22,000 before council approved the contract. I remember it well. Ernie Egger's college friend Jimmy Sims works for Mark Thomas Company. Now the council wants to pay Mark Thomas Company another $131,000 without ever seeing a design sketch or invoice for all the money they've been paid. That was my public records request, and I've never seen anything. Mark Thomas and Dennis Janda both work for Urban Logic Consultants. Now let's talk about the staff report. The staff report claims that the city has collected over $8.4 million in private partner contributions. Was this money put in a separate bank account to be transparent? Of course not. Staff has always stated that Heartland was not going to be part of Potrero Interchange, and yet the staff report lists $1.7 million collected from Heartland. The staff report also claims $6 million collected from others. What others gave the city $6 million for this scam? Is the others from the CFD, Melrose property taxes, that the city is overcharging Beaumont citizens? Developers must have separate accounting for Potrero. Beaumont taxpayers have paid enough. We're not doing this anymore.
Do we have any other public comments?
No.
Okay, you can just come up to the microphone, Mr. Roy.
I will try to be brief. And it looks like you're rolling along, and then all of a sudden, just when you thought you were ready with your agenda being finished. With Potrero, of course, I just want to point out, I want to express my opposition. I don't think it's a good idea. And I'd like to ask the council to continually reevaluate this as we get the economy shifting and priorities might shift. We still have a lot of vacant land over there. I'd like to ask the council to continually look for alternative routes to support any economic development in that area. For example, what if you don't do Potrero and the money's reallocated, for example, a 4th Street extension, but I just generally look for alternatives. Also, you're going to have to mitigate. If you've seen The Martian, you know that Matt Damon says, you know, I'm going to have to science the blank out of this. So I really think you need to mitigate the blank out of this interchange. If you consider that you're going to have all that diesel truck traffic, you're probably going to be looking, I hope you never see a diesel truck in that area. Rather see a resort there. I would rather see high quality rural residential housing, would add much more cachet and uniqueness to our city. We need to be iconic. We need to be unique. Bland, featureless warehouses are going to make us look like everyone else. Okay, so that's my pitch. But you're going to have to figure out with that huge development, Heartland, that's going to be, I forget how many hundreds of homes, all that diesel soot's going to be pouring in. And how are you going to mitigate for that? I do hope that I can bring you some suggestions in the next agenda item on the budget. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments?
No other comments.
Let me close the public comments at 7:10. Before the staff report, I'd like to address some of the issues that were just brought up. This is a finance plan, correct? So this is not saying that we've collected any of these funds yet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so the 6 point from others and 1.7, I'm sure you're going to address that in your staff report. And then I think what was left out of the timeline was that in February, I believe, this council came back and decided that we would move forward as long as the city didn't spend any more taxpayer money on this project. Is that correct?
That is correct.
That's still the plan moving forward, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Jakar.
Mayor, council members, it's just a quick recap of the events that have happened since January of this year. On January 3rd, we had a workshop on this project where property owners came up and talked about being partners in funding the gap for this project. Now, originally we have 13.4 million federal funding on this project. The total cost is a little over $20 million, so the gap was about 8.5 million. I have a table that shows the gap and how we are approaching funding that gap later on. So the property owners at that meeting indicated that they're willing to work with the city to find a way to fund that gap, and that would allow the city to not have to spend any money from general fund or any other funds that the city already has. And you're right, in February, we came back with some MOUs that addressed their intent to enter into agreements to fund that gap. We've met with most of the property owners, and we're working on the agreements. We are actually, with our attorney and with the property owners, we are reviewing the agreements, and we plan to bring that forward in May of this year, May 2nd. The next few steps to get that funding locked up, we plan to enter into the agreements on May 2nd with the property owners. So there are property owners that are all around there on the north side and the south side, and we presented a layout previously to the city. The old Heartland project is included in that layout. And part of the agreement would be that they would provide us funding by August 31st of this year. There are some other steps to accomplish that. Once the city has received the funding, we still need to work with them to form assessment district or CFDs. Financing, I'll go into that in a little bit of detail later on. And then, of course, we need to have the deposit by August 31st so we can proceed with the construction of the project. And then the other thing is we'll proceed with formation of a road and bridge benefit district. It's called RBBD, to allow for implementation of impact fees in that area, and that's only limited to the area of benefit. And that's one of the ways to be able to get credits for dump and other fees that are collected in the area, and apply that to the projects that are in the vicinity of the developments. And this is the finance plan for the project. We've revised it to show the funding from different sources. The first few rows describe the cost. The PSNE phase, which we're in right now, the cost is $600,000 for phase 1. I also have some cost estimates for phase 2. Roadway and structure, we've reviewed the estimates, and we believe it's close to $60 million. The item of utilities, some ongoing issues there that we're resolving. We believe it's 100,000 or less. Contingency is at $3 million, and the total for that phase is $18.7 million. Capital outlay and support is construction management and project management. Environmental mitigation, if there is any, we're leaving about 100,000 for that. And for financing and other costs, we're anticipating about 903,000. So the total cost for phase one is $21,943,000. The breakdown of the funding is the next few rows. The total grant funds are $13.443 million. The Wolverine project has already paid $644,000 in impact fees, and that'll be part of that RBBD, the district, the impact fee district. RSA, which is owner of the Heartland property, has agreed to work with us to fund at least $1.7 million in impact fees to pay for their share of the project on phase one. And then the rest of the property owners are willing to come up with $6.14 billion to reach that $8.5 million funding gap. If we are able to get all the agreements by May 2nd, then we will have funding that doesn't impact city's general fund to fund the phase one of the project. And I'll talk about the phase two as we talk about the road and bridge benefit district. So road and bridge benefit district is basically an impact fee district. It looks at the deficiencies in the roadways and the bridges and other infrastructure in an area, and then it comes up with the fee that should be collected that's fair and implemented on the development in that area to pay for those facilities. And it's not an assessment against the property. It's not a yearly assessment where they have to pay so much per acre or so much per house. It's just if they develop, they pay the fee just like they would pay our road and bridge fees or they would pay TUMP fees. It requires a study. We create an area of benefit. We create projects that benefit from that fee, and then we implement that fee. WRCOG recognizes this too, to be able to fund. So if we were to apply some of the TUMP monies to fund this project, this would be a tool for us to do that. So once we have formed a district and we have approved that district, we will be able to take some of the TUMP money and finish the project, projects that are on the list with that. It's not limited to phase one. We can include phase two. Oak Valley Iton interchange is another example that would benefit from that district. Interim phase, which is improvements on the previous 60, would also benefit. Widening of Portero Boulevard, currently we have half width done. Doing the other half width would be another project. Fourth Inning extension was brought up earlier. It's another project that would be able to get funding, and of course the traffic signal and other projects. So the process is we go through formation of a district, we come up with the fees, we look at our fees, we look at TUMP fees, and we look at a reasonable fee that can be implemented in that area, and it's only limited to that area. And as development comes in, they pay the fee, and those fees are then used to finance these improvements. And financing of the phase one, the way we're proposing is that Heartland will advance $1.7 million in their fees, and this could be a combination of city fees, road and bridge fees. Right now, currently, we only collect road and bridge fees. But at some point, if we're in TUMP, we'll be collecting TUMP and then local fees. So we'll determine that later on how that spread is on $1.7 million. And then the remainder of the property owners will advance $6.14 million, and they'll be paid back through formation of a CFD or an assessment district, and those are the details that we're working out with the property owners. There are some properties that are adjacent to the benefit area that would be just outside of the city limit, and some of those property owners are also willing to advance funds for this project. And in their contracts, they will be joining the assessment district or the road and bridge benefit district once they annex into the city. And again, the agreements are under review by staff, and we'll bring them back in May, the city council. The next thing that we're requesting is allow staff to continue some of the contract. We're getting to a point where we do need to expend additional funds. This is similar table to what I presented in January of this year. It doesn't exceed $650,000 that we've collected from Wolverine, so the money is not coming out of any other fees other than the fees that are generated by that area. On completion of task one, we're finalizing our comments, and they will be submitted back to Caltrans on next week, by the end of next week. And that's the work that's been done by Mark Thomas and Company. They had completed the plans previously. There were a lot of comments. We had 140 comments on the plans, and most of the comments were due to the changes since the plans were done, the new criteria that came up and new specifications that Caltrans has, and we're updating the plans to those. So there is additional cost, about $131,000 to complete that phase of the project. And that's only for phase one. On environmental revalidation, we're doing environmental for both phase 1 and 2. We've spent $18,600. There's some additional comments by Caltrans. We ended up spending $2,000 more to comply with that. The environmental revalidation was done prior to December 30th of last year, and so it's already completed. On surveying, originally when we started looking at the project in August of last year, our understanding was there's only one property left to be acquired. It turned out to be a lot more than just one property. We had 3 different property owners and quite a bit of properties to be acquired. And we had to update some of the right-of-way maps. The right-of-way map was not approved. We're still updating some of those maps and submitting it to Caltrans. And so the surveying, we need another additional $15,000 for phase 1 and 2, and that will complete right-of-way for both phases. So at the end of this, we'll have right-of-way for both phases. And project management is only for phase 1 so far. Again, due to the additional work that's required by other consultants, project management, we've already spent almost all of the encumbered to date, and we need another $60,000 to complete that. On the right-of-way itself, we have a right-of-way agent that's working with us to have a certified right-of-way. Caltrans requires us to acquire the right-of-way, and then to make sure that the right-of-way is complete and in accordance with the plan that they approved. We need to have somebody certify that. And not only that, somebody has to work with us to prepare the reports and get the remaining right-of-way recorded, collect all the deeds that were previously done, and then submit them to Caltrans. We believe the additional cost is $40,000 to finish that for phase 1 and 2. So subtotal for phase 1 and portion of the phase 2, encumbered to date is $233,900. We need additional $248,000. On the interim phase, we spoke to Caltrans, but in last week we had a PDT meeting with Caltrans, and they're requiring us to at least finish the design and pull the permit for interim phase prior to listing this project or prior to advertising the phase 1 of the project. And the reason for that is they believe that once this project is built, there will be additional traffic, and there will be safety issues on the state highway itself. And the interim project addresses that. It provides auxiliary lanes to get on and off Oak Knoll Drive. So it is also safer for city's residents to use to finish the interim project. What's encumbered so far is $50,000. We haven't spent any money on that. That was one of the projects that we really weren't working on. But to finish the design, I believe it'll take $40,000 to complete the design and submit for the permit and obtain that permit. The difference between that and the first phase is a project that goes through a different process. The second phase is a less than $3 million project for state of California, for Caltrans. They require a permit process. We're able to do the design, apply for a permit from the state, and they issue a permit, and we do the project under that. So it's a much more streamlined process for us to finish that project. We do need some environmental work, some surveying work, and some right-of-way work on interim phase also. And there's some contingency money that we're putting in there for $50,000. So altogether, it's $298,000 of additional that we need to finish the work. We're still shooting to finish everything by end of June of this year, but we are running short of time, and we do need to get some of the work authorized so we can finish that on time. But we're recommending, or we're requesting from council is approving of the finance plan as it was shown in the table earlier, and also approving contracts for the following consultant. For Mark Thomas, additional 131,000 for a total of 141. LSA, additional 7,000 for a total of 165 for environmental work. Dennis Janda, Inc., additional 25,000 for a total of 35,000. IDC, additional 60,000. That's a typo in the staff report. It says 65, but it's 60,000 for a total of 180,000. Epic Land Solution is doing the right-of-way work, and this additional 50,000 for a total of 75,300. And TRC will be doing the design work to complete interim phase of the project, and their contract is 35,000 to complete the interim phase. That concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Mr. Roscoe, go ahead.
Yeah. So, my understanding is that the amount that's being asked from us today to approve or to authorize is coming from the Wolverine project, the fees that they have already paid, because they're moving on construction, so that money has been received already. That 652,000 and 644 change. That's the money that we're anticipating to use for these contracts that are necessary.
That is correct. We have received 652,000 from Wolverine.
Okay, and that's what's being used. That's what's the intention here today, is using those funds that have been received to work to improve these contracts.
Yes, our intent is to include Wolverine project in the scope of the district, and so the fees collected from there would apply towards this project.
Okay.
You done?
No, but you'll go ahead.
Okay, no, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
You still have some time left.
Let's hear. So the Mark Thomas for the additional, is that for the second phase? Because I know we took a look at previously for the first phase, and we needed to pay additional fees to kind of get that completed. So this additional 131,000 to 241,000, this is for phase 2?
It's for phase 1. It's to address the comments from Caltrans.
Okay.
And there were substantial more. There were a lot more comments than we anticipated.
Okay. And the Dennis Janda?
That's because we're finishing acquiring all the right-of-way, including for phase 2. We're updating right-of-way map. That firm has done the previous work, had all the documents. It was easier for them to continue and finish the project.
Okay. And Epic Solutions?
It's they're doing the right-of-way work. They are collecting all the right-of-way, all the recorded documents previously recorded, and also recording the ones that are left, and then certifying that all the right-of-way is acquired.
I thought that's what Dennis Janda is doing.
Dennis Janda is preparing those documents and preparing the surveys and all the plats that go in those documents.
So is there a crossover?
No, one actually does the work of looking at the documents to making sure that they get recorded, that they're the proper documents, that the right-of-way being acquired matches what's on the right-of-way map. Dennis Janda, Inc., what they do is they go out there and survey, and they write the legal description, and for example, they're going out there and marking some locations for us that would allow Edison to come and look where their poles are going. So they're doing surveying work, and the other one is doing work for filing of the documents and certifying that the documents are correct.
And the Dennis Janda, I mean, the only reason we're working with them is because they have done this before. There are no, because they've done this before, or they've done the work, this is making it cheaper for us if we're going to go out and look for someone else to do this, or.
It would be cost effective to use them. They have prepared all the legal descriptions, and so as we're going through and we're correcting the legal descriptions, and we're getting them recorded. So they have the plats that were prepared. They have the legal descriptions that were written. They're the ones stamping the legal description, saying that they are correct. So if we had to give it to somebody else, they'll have to start the process again, and it'll delay us, and also it'll cost us more.
Okay. Okay, and then TRC Solutions, is that similar to what Mark Thomas does, or is that different?
They do design work. They reviewed the original documents for us. Mark Thomas has a timeline, very tight timeline to submit the comments back to Caltrans. So we're reluctant to give them interim phase also, because if they delay one, both will get delayed. So we're looking. I did get prices from Mark Thomas and get prices from TRC, and they're similar prices. So our preference is to go with a different firm and finish the design phase for interim phase, but not have Mark Thomas.
I see. You just don't want them to get bogged down with these two different projects.
So because Caltrans, once we submit the comments back, once we submit our plans from phase 1 to Caltrans, they may have additional comments. So we don't want to have the same set of people working on two plans that need to be submitted at the same time, and then not be able to finish one or the other and then delay both.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else have questions or comments? I do. Mr. Lara.
The 652,000 that Wolverine have they already paid that in Road and Bridge?
I did verify that, and yes, we did receive that.
And was that earmarked for any other projects other than Potrero?
It's not been earmarked for any other project.
Okay. So when they paid it, the city hadn't intended to use that money at that time for Potrero, correct?
No, at that time it was just a fee that was paid.
Okay, and then I understand that we've got to re-engineer to meet current Caltrans requirements. Is that re-engineering going to impact the construction cost of Potrero? So in other words, we're going to have to, now we're paying additional money for engineering. Are we going to end up paying additional money for construction costs? You think?
The comments, a lot of these are modifications to the standards. So we're referring to a 2015 standard versus 2012 standard. So there might be just minor map corrections. So there may not be cost item attached to it. Or there may be a difference in slope on the sidewalk, for example. So there are minor issues. The cost estimates includes any corrections that are made from the 2012 to 2015 comments.
Okay. So the $3 million you identify in contingency, that's once construction starts. That's not to cover overrun costs that we have now, or additional costs, I should say.
Yes, the $3 million contingency is for future. When we started this project, I think it was January when we came back, we presented to council that it'll cost $600,000 to finish. So we're within that framework. In August of last year, we didn't know exactly what the status of the right-of-way was, and the documents, other documents that were needed to be submitted to Caltrans, environmental, how much work would be needed. So now we have a much better handle on how much it would cost to finish this.
Okay. And then I know that, I think you referenced in your PowerPoint, May 2nd is the deadline for agreements to be signed. How many are left to be signed? Do we know? How many outstanding?
We're going to be presenting those to council at your regular meeting on May 2nd for consideration and approval. And then if those contracts are approved, then we proceed forward with the funding portion from their prepaid contributions. We're looking at 5 to 6 final contracts that you'll consider at May 2nd if we can get them done. So we, as Amr had mentioned, we've received drafts from Mr. McDonald, really I guess Monday. So we've been reviewing those, and then we'll be getting those over to Mr. Pinckney's office to do a final review.
Okay.
Mr. Pinckney's actually completed his comments on that review. So.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Amr.
Mayor Pro Tem, Mr. Martinez, go ahead.
Just to clarify, maybe I got lost in the shuffle here. So the original 600,000 on the finance plan for the PS&E, is that a part of what you're asking today? Is that a part of that, or is that another additional 600? Because we were talking about the 652 from Wolverine, but
so the 652 on the finance plan is our estimate what it would take for PSA, and this is a breakdown of that 600,000. So it is the same item.
Okay. And then when you're talking about an additional 298,
So the 233 that you have authorized so far plus 298 is still under the 600,000.
in that, okay. That's was the word additional and me don't go too well, so. And I don't know, I'm curious to see what you guys think about the consultants. You know, some comments were made about consultants, and I think it's kind of time that we kind of move forward, kind of get some other people involved. But, you know, we're put in a bind here because you have mentioned the cost effectiveness and time. You know, having the plan already there and just modifying it is more cost effective. So I can imagine what the numbers would look like if we had to change that. I don't even know if we can time-wise now. But I just had to make that comment. I'm not comfortable with continuing with some of these meetings that we've had, but I have a feeling that we may not have a choice. So I don't know if you guys feel that that's an issue, but it's one.
So when we get to second phase, or construction.
Well, and that's true. But that's all here.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll.
I'll actually continue maybe Mr. Martinez's thought on the involving other people. It's my understanding that once you've gotten involved in an engineering project to a certain extent, nobody else is going to come in and take another engineer's work and switch to another firm at some point in time. So once we're in with these particular individuals up to this point, in all likelihood, we would be finishing with them. Is that correct?
That is correct. And this is a very good point you bring up. And, this is something that Mr. Parton has held several times, that if we were starting this project from scratch, this is not how we would be doing it. This would be not the way we would deliver this project at all. And so it's our project. The consultants are coming in. They're coming in with little or no knowledge on some of these projects and helping us. So the original contracts that we did were just initial contracts to get them started. And this is now complete, getting PSNE done. But you're right, as we should be going out, we should be going through the RFP process, we should be following that and delivering the project the right way. So this is not something that I like to do, but this is something that we're forced to do. But as we're moving forward, for example, the construction management, it's probably a range of $1.5 to $2.5 million contract. We did go out to RFP. We did receive 9 RFPs on that. We're going through that process, and we can, when we have the time and the ability, we will be doing that. When we go to the construction contract, we'll be awarding it. We'll go through the bidding process, and we'll go awarding it and getting this done. But receiving plans that are 90% done, environmental that needs to be revalidated, and it's very difficult to do RFPs when we don't have the scope well defined. And that's the problem that we ran into in this project.
All right, thank you. So the construction is going to be a much clearer break point where we'll be in a different situation. The other thing, I look at these numbers and, encumbered to date, if I look at that, and I realize there's a little combination there on some of the issues like surveying of both phase 1 and phase 2. When I look at that total and then I look at the anticipated additional, the additional is actually more than the encumbered by, and some of these have gone up a significant amount. If I look at, in particular, we see right away, you brought that up, it's gone up 40,000, which is a considerable percentage. So some of these have gone up a considerable percentage when you look at, so I'm a little concerned about where we're going to be going forward. How much is this going to inflate going forward percentage-wise? I know that we always end up with cost increases, or it's a little bit more, or we didn't think of this, but some of these numbers cause me concern about the percentage of increase.
And we did see that, we knew that back in December. That's why we brought all that information to you in January. This hasn't changed since then. We knew what the cost was going to be. I believe with the contingency that we put in there, 50,000, I don't think that I'm very confident that we will not need any more for the plan and specification phase of it. This actually includes a very good review of each step that needs to be done. And I work with each consultant and make sure that we're covering all the way to the finish line with this cost. The initial cost that you see was just to get started, start collecting the information, start submitting to Caltrans, getting their input to finding out what we need to do to finish this project. And that's why you see that lower number. We didn't want to award large contracts, not knowing what the scope of the work was.
And then again, even though it is an additional amount, the city itself is not paying for that additional amount. It's coming from the developer money that is being aggregated and put forth, right?
That is correct. The initial 650,000 is coming from one of the property owners. That's part of the funding agreement for the project, and that project is included in the overall benefit area for the project. There is no general fund other than the time that being spent by staff, from me and some other staff here. We're not charging any money from the general fund to this project.
Thank you.
Okay. First of all, regarding consultants versus staff, would a city of 48,000 normally have the kind of staff to do the kind of work that we have? I mean, we have to hire consultants sometimes, correct?
This is very normal type of work that would be awarded to a consultant.
No, I agree with, we're doing this the wrong way and we should be doing it the right way, but we're here where we're at. Council knew this was going to be a challenge to do it in the direction that we gave you. And so I know it was a tall challenge. I specifically commented at the time that I didn't want any funds that would have been used for other projects to be used on Potrero. So when was the Wolverine money received by the city?
I believe it was last year sometime. I don't recall the date.
Okay. So to me, if it was last year and we decided in January we weren't going to spend any more city funds on this, I don't believe that the money for the Wolverine was earmarked for Potrero. I think if it had been, I would have at least objected at the time. So this is another 268,000 that I don't see how it is not money coming from city funds, and that it is being used where it could be used on the other projects. Did you want to address that?
Well, yeah, because this is, the Wolverine is a lot which is part of the overall tract that's coming into the ultimate benefit district and is contributing dollars towards this project. And so with that, there's also some additional assessments that will be claimed against that property that will go back to reimburse for or cover the cost for these funds that are being contributed. And it's also being included in the funding agreement that goes to TUMP for the fee credits for the project. So to me, they're all interlinked. So those dollars that came in and that property that's coming in is being assessed, and it's also part of the overall district that's going towards building this project if it moves forward. So I think those are funds that should be eligible.
But this is a district that has not yet been established, correct?
You're going to have to create a financing district in order to secure the fee credits, the TUMP fee credits.
I understand that, but to say that Wolverine was part of a district that doesn't exist yet, that's not
right.
accurate.
So if this project moves forward, then you would need to create a district. A district would need to be created. The first step is a CFD. Then the next step would be an RBBD with an expansion to address that. So to me, it's logical that the dollars that were there, if this project is going to proceed forward, would then be credited and applied towards this project. And that's consistent with the manner in which the other projects that are going to develop are going to come into this. It's important that we include as much developed property as possible into the CFD as well, because when the CFD is created, there's a potential need to be able to have developed property as well as dirt available to be able to finance the bonds or the other financing that may be required. So to me, they're interlinked, to bring those dollars in to proceed forward to the project. And that'd be a fair equitable arrangement for the land that's there that's brought in that will be contributing to the project.
But special assessment districts and CFDs and RBBDs are designed to provide, and I understand, you build these districts so that the infrastructure for that area, that specific area of the district can be constructed. And there's two ways to get the money from the funding mechanism to the person who constructs it, and that's either the city construction keeps the money and constructs it, or we ask the developers to construct them, and then they trade them in for credit for the money they spent on that.
That's right.
So in this case, if Wolverine becomes part of an RBBD or a CFD, are they going to be credited back the $650,000 that we already have?
Yeah, they'd be eligible for reimbursement through that if that's what y'all chose to do through the CFD. You keep in mind that in order to qualify for fee credits through TUMP, which is really the toughest part of all this, is that you've got to follow the WRCOG protocols for that. And so they will not provide a fee credit if there isn't a financing mechanism in place there somewhere. So the other element to this is that in the timing of this project, that we're looking for dollars that have to come in advance of the creation of the finance district. So the $650 that was paid already, the additional balance of the 8.5 that comes forward, all have to be advanced ahead of time. And so, and again, when we were negotiating with WRCOG, that was a critical issue to say, hey, we need these projects recognized because we're getting all these dollars advanced ahead of time. And so they're going to go towards a project that hopefully is included into the TUMF program at some point. And when it's included, then there's credits that need to be provided in arrears of that agreement, or in that nexus study, and inclusion of the community coming into the program. And so, so that's really kind of the complicating factors. Ideally, we would have a district created. There would be a financing or a funding fee credit agreement that was created, and then you proceed forward. And you're correct. The two mechanisms by which those improvements are delivered that would qualify for fee credits would either be the developer is going to actually fund the full improvements, and then 100% of the credit for those improvements are credited back against the developer, and those improvements are consequently taken off of the TUMF network. So they're providing 100% of that.
Okay.
The other is to create a financing mechanism where as funds are created, and then the project is funded and developed from there. One complicating factor with this situation is that that WRCOG doesn't like dollars to come to the city and then have the city collect those dollars and do a project. Because that short circuits TUMP, it short circuits our CTC, potentially is the way they might look at that. So hence the reason to create an RBBD or a CFD that really is the entity that's getting the credits, not the individual, not the city. It's going to the actual district that's the entity that's getting that credit.
Okay. I have a number more questions. My time is up. If anyone else wants to jump in, I'd like to suggest, I know it's in the middle of an item, but we need to take a break, and we can come back and I can address more of my questions. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes.
Okay, we'll take a 10-minute, we'll come back at 8 o'clock. Okay, we'll come back to order at 8 o'clock. All right, my time was up. Anybody else have questions before I go again?
Yes, I would like to make a point.
Sure. Is your microphone on?
Is it on?
Yeah, it's on.
Can you hear me now? No?
Yes.
Can you hear me, Milana? The totals are incorrect on this PS&E phase report. The encumbered to date adds up to 283.9, and the anticipated additional comes out to 368,000. And then if you add that across, it adds up to the 651,900.
Oh, right, the two totals right now do not come to that 651.
It sounds like the 50,000 contingency. What's the number? Yeah.
Yeah, we'll note that, make that correction, thanks.
Yeah.
So the total is correct, the grand total.
Yeah, that encumbered to date line doesn't include the 50,000 that's been allocated in contingency, because those are unexpensed at this point.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's not included in the 233.9. Got it.
It's not, if you subtract.
Okay. All right. The 298 was off also, though, correct?
Yes, it adds up to 368.
There's 20,000 that wasn't tallied up in the bottom.
Right, because if you have 248 at the subtotal,
right,
and then you have the 50 at the bottom for the contingencies, but you didn't add the rest. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
318 on the bottom.
Well, a little more than the 50, because if you look at the numbers from completion of design, it's 45, 55, 70. Yeah. So it'd be 70. Okay, so we'll get those numbers straight. All right, anybody else with questions or comments? You'll still have a chance after I get through. Everyone can talk on this as long as we need to, in 5-minute segments. Okay. Okay, so first of all, let me address the RBBD. And I know that we're not approving any of these districts, but I'm not real comfortable with the way it was presented tonight. Is an RBBD specific? Is it a citywide area or specific to the Potrero development? Because there was a comment that said other projects outside of the city limits would be able to be incorporated into the RBBD.
Okay, so the RBBD is a road and bridge benefit district. And so that is an area, if you imagine it's a geographic area that we identify that you have a lot of levity on how you want to generate that district. And so that district then is a fee district. So what it does is it then you go through, you create the geographic area, you include the properties that you want to include into the RBBD. And as long as, 51% of the targeted properties vote to come in, then the RBBD can be created. Then what you do is you
Does the other 49 forced to come in if 51 says yes?
They could be, but we don't anticipate you're going to be in that situation.
Okay.
The RBBD can be created. There may be a few additional parcels you want to bring into the RBBD when it's time to create it that may make sense.
Okay.
But you'll know that when you get there. So the RBBD drops in. It's a geographic area. Within that geographic area, you identify the specific capital projects that you want to fund in that area. And so you would identify, they could be local street projects, they could be signals, they could be Potrero, they could be any of the things that you determine need to go in there. And then you do an assessment process then to look at what the fees would be within that geographic area to cover the cost of those projects. And then you go through a process like you do with any other assessment district or impact fee, you begin to apportion that out on some basis. You could do it on acreage, you could do it on land use, you could do it on traffic generation. There's any number of methodology ways.
So when you say proportionate, are you talking about for the fee collection?
Correct. So if you create your RBBD and you say there's $40 million that needs to be created, and then you identify what the development estimates would be for the build out in that area. Then you calculate what the cost would be you calculate a fee for that.
Okay.
Okay.
And then that's an annual fee that's paid as part of a business's property taxes?
No, it's an impact fee. And so you've created now an impact fee for this specific geographic area. And then you go through a standard development process. What the RBBD allows you to do is to say, we're going to capture TUNF projects, city projects within this district.
Okay.
We're going to now have an impact fee collected within that district that's going to then cover those specific projects. Once those project costs are covered, then the RBBD can go away.
And the CFD is encompassed in the RBBD?
Yes.
Separate of?
Yeah. So now within the RBBD, then you can create other financing mechanisms. So the RBBD in and of itself is just a fee zone.
Impact fees.
It's just an impact fee zone. It's a subset of TUM for a subset of the city.
Okay. Are there any other funds that we've already received from developers such as Wolverine that have not been earmarked for Potrero that we will be seeing in the future as paying for part of Potrero?
No. Everything else is in advance, Heartland and the rest of the.
Okay.
properties.
And could Wolverine also be voted into a CFD against their will and then have to be paying CFD expenses as well?
Well, the owner of Wolverine is part of this effort, and he's the lead on trying to create the CFD and create the financing mechanism to make this happen. So he's one of the folks that is trying to put the CFD together to make it happen.
Okay, and I heard a mention, it might have been from Mr. Orozco, about funding for Phase 2. Funding for Phase 2 has never come before this council, correct?
That's correct.
So there's nothing approved for funding for Phase 2.
That's right, except for some of the right-of-way and some of the other things that are already being taken care of. For example, what Caltrans said is we had to have all the right-of-way secured in order to proceed forward with even the first phase of construction. And then they've come back now and said, well, you have to do the interim phase now, in addition to that, because they're concerned about other traffic safety and movement issues with Phase 1 being constructed. So there is some additional survey work. There's some additional right-of-way acquisition costs that's gone into Phase 2. That's part of what we have to do to get Phase 1 done.
Now, Heartland did not know that they were going to be aware or be part of Potrero, and we decided they didn't have to be, yet we're still getting $1.7 million. Has that been received or it's been pledged?
Right. They're on board.
So we've had discussions with them. What they do not want to do is be part of a CFD that funds this. They'd much rather do a CFD on their own, separate. RBBD is not a CFD. It will only create the amount of fees that they're due. So they're okay with this, and they're okay with upfronting the fee. So it's not going against their will and putting them into a district that they don't want to be in.
So the 1.7 from them, is that going to come through as an RBBD payment? Is that the plan?
The agreement specifies that they'll advance the money, and then at a later date, when they are coming in to pull the permits, whatever is in place, they'll comply with that. So the fee district, if there is no RBBD, then they'll be paying town and city fees. So those will be the ones that get reimbursed. So it depends on how and when they pull permits, and what fees are due at that time, and what districts and financing mechanisms are in place.
And the 8.5 million that is being contributed by the owners, that is up front. That's not going to be part of any, at this point, RBBD funds, because the RBBD has not been yet established.
Correct.
And tonight, are we voting on, is this in two pieces, several pieces? So it answered my question right there. And I'll finish with a comment, and then I believe I'm done, and anyone else can ask questions or comments. My comment is that it was in my assumption that funds we already had in the city's coffers before this was approved with no more city funds and no more taxpayer, and the fact that I had mentioned that I didn't want funds that could be used for other projects to be redirected to this one, that I'm not comfortable with using the Wolverine money for these advances on these contracts. So I will be voting against item number 2 and item number 3. I'm okay with you continuing to move forward with a financing plan, but I think that I'm disappointed that monies that we already had, even before, well, we don't know when we received it. Did we receive it before the August vote to go forward with Potrero? Had we already received the money, Milana? Do you know that, Milana? Okay. So, and I don't want to see any more money coming from redirected funds, but that's all I have to comment. And if anyone else would like to comment or ask questions, now's the time.
Quick question.
Mr.
So,
Lara.
the money that Wolverine paid was based on a nexus study for RBBD, right? No?
They paid our road and bridge. They paid the city's road and bridge fees,
Okay.
impact fees.
So, in that fee is got its specific allocations, and that's how you develop that fee. I guess the concern that I have is we're retroactively going out and getting that money and bringing it into Potrero when it originally was never earmarked for Potrero.
Remember, our road and bridge impact fees are based on a network of roadways for the city.
Correct.
And so it included Potrero, it includes all the various roads that we have. So those fees were collected on the basis of that nexus.
Okay. And I guess that's getting to my point. So it's, what portion of that is earmarked for Potrero? Because wouldn't it be broken out, some X dollars or X percentage for Potrero, X percentage for Oak Valley, X percentage for Cherry Valley Boulevard? And so,
Well, no, that's not how we do, that's not how we implement the program. And we don't take a fee and we say, hey, we can take, 10% of that fee and put that towards the street light and 10% goes towards that. We collect those fees, and then those fees are then applied to eligible projects within the fee district. And so, that's the way that we've been applying it, and that's a pretty common way to apply, the fees. So we're not different there.
Okay.
Like if you look at TUMF, right now, you look at RCTC,
right.
They'll collect those fees and then they'll apply those. They'll make a determination as to which projects they want to fund. Then if they have the money, then they fund it. And they keep collecting fees on the balance.
Okay. So you're not saying right now though that you're going to put 100% of that, was it 650,000 towards Potrero, or is that?
Well, that's what they're going to request, is that fee that they've already paid would be applied to Potrero. And so, and to me, that makes sense because they want to be part of the CFD.
Right.
And it's one lot of, 4 planned lots in that project. And if they include them in the CFD, and then you also begin to assess them for reimbursement of that cost back for the project, then you're really kind of double dipping them. So you're saying that we're carving out that 650, so the landowners are still going to have to come up with, the full 6.8 for them, and then you're going to assess them on top of that. So you're really asking them to pay over and above what they've already paid, which was based on our Nexus study. So I don't know that you really could do that. The other issue that we have is an issue of timing, and that is that, again, we've got to get, for this project to stay on and hit our June timeline, we really have got to have some authorization to be able to move forward with these final pieces of the design. So that's one of the other issues that we're up against in terms of trying to figure out whether we keep this project moving forward.
I guess my concern would be is that I see there are other uses for that in that area as well, not just Potrero, and it was collected before we even did Potrero, so I just have a concern in that regard too. So,
Sure, I understand.
Thank you for your explanation.
Sure, I understand.
Mr. Orozco.
I know when the beginning of this project, it was just discussions going on with the staff, and I know I was present, Brenda Knight was present when she was mayor at the time, and we sat there with Kyle, myself, Brenda Knight, and then Mike came in towards the second meeting, right? And the conversations, and then with Elizabeth, there's discussions in regards to their interest on knowing when Potrero is going to be built, if there's an interest in it, because their concern is they would come in, and they want to make sure that there was a vision, at least a guarantee or commitment on our part that there was going to be a Potrero project, and that was their biggest concern. And I know it was, I'm not sure if it was part of the agreement, the original agreement that we signed, or the commitment, which came later, but there was large discussions that were taking place in terms of their concern that they want to make sure that Potrero is going to move forward because they didn't like the idea of not having access to their project, and those concerns were brought up. What I'm afraid of is we turn around and then we ask them to pay another fee. They may come back and sue us or make a complaint saying, wait a minute, we're being charged twice, and might be a concern later. And I know it was before Amir was here, before Todd was here, but those were the types of discussions that were going on. I don't know if you recall that, Elizabeth, and that was kind of their main concern over and over and over and over again, was the Potrero project, because that was their interest. Otherwise, I think they would have not made a commitment in terms of placing themselves within our city. So that's just my concern if we go kind of a different direction at this point. So, and I don't want to jeopardize our position that we're trying to make with the TUMP program, and we're trying to go back into that. I don't want to upset any of our partners in this project now that we're hopefully going back into the TUMP program. So.
Before I respond to the comments from Mr. Lara and Mr. Orozco, I just want to clarify, you're not saying there were 3 council members in a meeting that was not a public meeting, are you?
No. This was not. This meeting was just 2 council members.
Okay, I thought you said Mike came in later.
Yeah, because Brenda was no longer the mayor, and then Mike came in.
Yes, there may have been a commitment made back when Brenda was on council, but we made it clear as a council, it was a 5-0 vote in January, that we wanted a commitment from the developers that the city would not pay any more funds. Now, Mr. Lara brought up the point with DIF fees being collected for projects that may fall into the city's Nexus study or Nexus plan. So again, I come back to, aren't there other properties that have paid into those DIF fees that would also qualify for being used in Potrero besides Wolverine? I mean, if it's a road and bridge fee, and we can use Wolverine for Potrero, aren't there other fees that could also be earmarked for this?
We've collected road and bridge fees, and they're eligible to be applied to this project as well.
Okay, so we may be hearing about more fees that are in those funds that could be used for some of the other projects in the city, correct?
You bet. Any legal use, we can apply those fees to.
Okay, and that to me is not in the spirit of the commitment we asked the developers to make in January.
But we can't use another, we're not going to bring in fees from another area and put them into this RBD.
No, but we're using money the city already had to fund more into this project, which we said we didn't want to do that.
So one of the things that we can do is we can go back and look at legally how we can form a CFD and not have to do this 654 that's collected, not have to pay back. That's something we need to look at, but it's not, and part of the agreements we can have with the developers. But it's important because the Heartland project, one of the comments on its environmental is to, prior to getting their occupancy for their homes on the first phase of this project has to be done. City has to deliver that project. They are committing to paying the 1.7 million for us to do the project. The other thing is that we are joining WRCOG and will be part of TUMP. And there is a very limited way for us to comply and to be able to access those funds and apply it to our project. We have to now comply with guidelines that are in place. And this is not something we're trying to do to try to take money and put it into this project. We're trying to comply with the state laws and then the TUMP guidelines and all of the stuff that is required to make sure that most of the fees that are collected in that area first go to fund the projects that are needed. So if somebody, Heartland has a CFD and they come in, people come in and they pay the CFD, now they can see what that CFD funded. It funded Portero interchange. They can use that to get off and on street. They will fund Portero Bridge itself.
So do we have CFD funds that we've already collected that could be earmarked and moved for this project as well? CFD funds that were paid into road and bridge funds?
Not that I can think of. It would be only future CFD and future impact fees.
Okay. Ms. Carroll?
Okay, I just need clarification. But if people have already, if there's already money that's been paid into the road and bridge fees for other projects, then they're not necessarily at risk of being included, saying, we want this money now to go to Potrero, because don't they have to be within that geographical footprint that we declare is so somebody across town can't say, I gave you money and I want to be that money to go into the Potrero project. No. So there can't be that kind of poaching going on, correct?
No, hold on.
Or did I misconnect
this is an impact fee program, okay? And so our impact fee is based on system-wide improvements.
Right.
And so the way the system works is you either pay your fee to mitigate your traffic impact.
Right.
Or you make improvements and then you get credits back against the fees that would have been collected. So if a development happens and we collect fees, we can then utilize those fees for any qualified improvement in the system. So it doesn't mean I paid my fee and my fee gets guaranteed to be applied for a specific issue. So there's no poaching. We're legally using the fees for the manner in which they were collected.
But the reason that I'm asking is, and thank you, but I understand that difference. But we're talking about Wolverine here, and Wolverine is going to be, if you draw a circle geographically, it's connected to this area. So I can see both sides of the argument. I can see where they'd be concerned about double dipping or having to pay twice. But then I can also see that they're in a unique situation where they're right involved in the geographical area of this Potrero project, and where they would be able to say it would be beneficial to them if the whole project went forward, so they'd like to be supportive of this by having their fees as part of the project.
Right.
Did I not say that correctly? So I can see both sides of it, but we're not necessarily at risk for anybody else doing that. This is really because Wolverine is geographically connected, so to speak, to this project.
Yes, and they also want to be part of the project. There's two things that are.
But with what Ms. Carroll's bringing up, 93-1 is a CFD that encompasses the entire city, and Potrero was listed on numerous 93-1 bonds as far as projects that could be used for it. So I'm concerned that the CFD money from 93-1 will be used for the Potrero project, and I'm going to hear an argument that says legally we can do it, and I'm sure legally we can do it.
Now we're talking about our DIF fees, not CFD. Remember, CFD is going back to leverage dollars for reimbursement for improvements made or to be applied to specific projects. And so,
but Potrero's listed. I remember sitting in a lot of meetings here and would see Potrero listed as part of the bond money.
So that's when you approve the financing plan today, it limits what money would come into that project. So it's that that money that's coming from Wolverine, the advance that's coming from the property owners, and the money coming from previously Heartland project. That's the only money. There would be no other CFD money for 93
So you would be-
CFD.
you'd be
You're
com-
limiting us to just that.
So would you be comfortable in modifying the finance plan to specifically state that there will not be any other funds other than the Wolverine funds and the funds generated by RBBD and? Because that would make me a lot more comfortable.
That's the intent of the whole finance plan, is to say, okay, this is the finance, and if within that expenditures, this is where the revenues are going to come from. So what you're approving today is just that. There is no other source of fund, no other impact fees collected. For example, on Highland Springs Avenue can go there. Any CFD that's formed cannot go there. It's the property owner have to come with 6.14 million. We have to use the Wolverine money, and RSA has to come with 1.7 by May 2nd, or we don't go forward.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we have any motions at this time? Anyone like to make a motion?
I think Mike, you didn't get a chance to talk.
Mr. Martinez, did you want to speak?
No, I've made my comments already.
So is there anyone like to make a motion?
I got one last question,
Okay.
and I apologize.
No problem.
So, but I guess one concern that I have, or another concern that I have, is that we continue to put money out on this thing without any knowledge of RCTC's money and whether or not they're gonna support this. So we could end up paying money and throwing good money after bad on this
Now,
RBBD.
if we hit our timelines, if we follow the RCTC guidelines that they've set, then this project is allocated, it's funded.
Okay.
So if we miss our timeline or we're not making significant headway, then they've already put us on notice that they're probably going to yank those funds.
Okay.
So as long as we hit our timeline, we should be there.
But you're talking about the funds that are being held right
13
now.
million, right, the 13 million in highway funds that are allocated.
But aren't we relying on some TUMP funds possibly on this in the plan?
No.
Okay.
So that's the second part of it, coming, that what you saw in us forming the RBBD and then going through the other process, that's in future when we're part of dump, we would have to have some other mechanism in place that complies with their guidelines. And they've indicated to us what.
And I just want to remind you that the old administration and council never had anything in writing from WRCOG on TUMP fees. So don't come to me and tell me, yeah, we're going to be able to use this TUMP money because I talked to so-and-so at RCTC and it's good to go.
So anticipation of the second phase, we'll have the TUMP already in place.
No, not necessarily. So we have to make, that's why the RBBD is really kind of critical with this, because
that's my
it
point.
allows you to funnel 100% of those fees being collected to achieve those specific improvements that you're.
And it's TUMP, it's allowed by TUMP, they're going to allow that.
If it's back on their
It'll be
nexus.
recognized
That's
by
what I'm saying.
WRCOG, and then there's fee credits that you can then qualify for through the RBBD.
So my point in saying is that, again, I want to make sure we do this with the stakeholders, these stakeholders, in agreement to it. Not, I don't want to go down the road and, have any in terms of complaints or concerns and, causing our ability to do that and be eligible for TUMP. Not ineligible, saying, well, no, you guys can't do this, or.
Okay, the agreements that we're working on that are drafted discuss the process, the steps. So it talks about the allocation of the prepayment of the dollars. It then talks about the creation of the CFD. Then it talks about ultimately to get phase one funded. And then it talks about the creation of an RBBD to get to the ultimate improvements. Okay. And so those are the steps that are really outlined through that process. And so we can't get verification from WRCOG until we're part of TUMP. And that's been the other frustrating thing. Plus, Caltrans saying you got to have a guarantee of funding before we'll release you and approve you to proceed forward on this project. So there's just, that's like Amr said earlier, we talked about this is the exact wrong way to do a project. We would never do a project like this ever if we could avoid it.
All right, I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'm going to give a shot at a motion, Mayor White. What I'll do is I'll break it up into three separate motions. So on item 22, I'd like to make a motion under sub-item 1, to approve the financing plan as shown in Table 1, with a caveat of the $652,000 that was collected for Wolverine is the only money from the city that's to be used.
Is that your motion?
That's motion, yeah.
I'll second that motion. For item
For item
22-1.
Do we want to vote on that, or do you want me to do all?
No, let's take it one at a time.
You talked about money received, though.
So, yeah, I think you need to clarify the 652. So maybe you can help us with that, Mr. Pardon. You might have an idea of where Mike's going with that.
Just the $652,000 that, for the Wolverine project, is kept in the Potrero, but no money outside of that from the cities to be used.
The only funds from
Sorry, Nicole.
road and bridge fees collected to date that are applicable towards this project would be those collected from Wolverine.
Let's put that on the finance. Is that what you would like to see on the finance plan? Okay.
That's good. Item number 1. Okay.
All right.
Stated.
I'll
So we have a
second that.
motion by Laura.
Mike
We have a
already
second by Roscoe.
Oh, Mark already did.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor White?
No.
Okay, then item number 2, or motion number 2 would be to authorize the city manager to amend the following contracts as identified in A through E.
I'll second that to authorize.
Councilmember Martinez?
With my reservations, yes.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lara?
Reservations here, but yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Reservations, yes.
Mayor White?
No.
Then item number 3, authorize the city manager to negotiate and execute a contract with TRC Solution in the amount of $35,000 to complete the plans for the interim phase.
Clarification, is the 35,000 coming from the Wolverine money as well?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We need a second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor White?
No. All right, we'll move on to item number 23.
Mayor, if I could, can I just take just a couple minutes and maybe kind of correct some of the information?
Sure.
What the testimony you heard a little earlier. One was the suggestion that you don't do this project and you use part of those highway funds to do 4th Street or other things. There's a protocol process by which those funds are allocated. It's not to the city's discretion on where we want to move those funds. So those were authorized and approved for specific purposes for specific levels. And so it has to go towards highway qualified projects. 4th Street wouldn't be necessarily a qualifying project. There's an extension. Furthermore, if you did 4th Street without a bridge crossing at Potrero and 60, then it's a dead-end road. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't achieve your transportation needs. So you're trying to funnel road or traffic back out to I-10, which is part of the mitigation issue we're trying to address. But the other issue was a statement with regard to land uses that are out there and specifically to the Heartland EIR. The Heartland EIR was approved in anticipation that mitigation would occur, meaning Potrero was being completed and functional for the build-out of Heartland. And that EIR contemplated the land use plan and contemplated the other development that would be surrounding that project ultimately with build-out. The plan on the south side of 60 is for commercial, industrial, and some single-family residential. You got Heartland, that's single-family residential with a small commercial retail corner. And then on the other side, you've got the Village Center, which is a mixed-use residential, commercial, retail project. So all those land uses were taken into consideration with regard to the environmental assessment and the EIR for this project. So this is being consistent with that. The project would be there and is an important part for Heartland as it develops to be able to mitigate its negative effects. So those were some key things that I think are critical in looking at this. And I know there's some points that we've heard, periodically. So I just wanted to be able to address those quickly.
Thank you. So item 23 is approve city council goal statements and set the time and date for a fiscal year 2018 budget workshop.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got some fancy handouts for you.
Okay. Did we already get those?
Things to look at. Yeah, those were at your places there. So we've got a copy of a PowerPoint presentation that we're going to bring up, I think.
I also, Mayor, I have two speakers. I don't know if you want to hear them before or after.
Yeah, let's go ahead. I'll open public comments at 8:35.
I have a request from Judy, but I don't believe she came back. Ron Roy?
Okay, Council, I think you probably know that a budget is, in a way, an outline of the set of principles of the city as to how it wants to go forward, how it articulates specifically where it wants to go in all aspects. You've outlined them in your proposal, and that applies to state and national too. Where do you think our city should be? Where it's going to be unique? Where is it going to be the same? First thing, procedurally, I am concerned that I want to know that we could have at least one meeting where the public input. We need community input on this. I don't think we want to just jump in and let a developer, excuse my bias, a consultant who may have a very narrow view and doesn't really live in the area, understands where the community wants to go, have kind of a narrow casting, vision on it. I just saying we need community input before we go farther. There's also some issues here. Well, let me run through it. I hope you start using indigenous species for your landscaping, and the county of Riverside has a really good landscaping ordinance that you can use. Also, you need to start thinking about developing a regional park with trails and wilderness areas. And I do think that the city of Beaumont and the Community Services Department, I'm going to advocate, it has to play a larger role. The Parks Department, the Beaumont Parks and Recreation District is a vestige when we had a very small community of like 5,000 people. The county's role in growing cities is to take over that role. But now it's in a donut hole. I do feel it's a vestige and it's sort of obsolete. We need to have the city increase its role. On economic development, again, I hope you start to look at where we sit strategically in the region. We had 2-hour backup going to Coachella on Friday afternoon in San Mateo. I have people I know who are looking at staying at the IE for events, for Los Angeles County events, obviously Coachella Valley. So we really have to start looking at a resort destination issue. If you're not thinking about trying to be unique and iconic, then you're never going to be that. We're going to look like every other city in the area, a featureless, wasteland where everything looks the same. You have to fight hard to be unique. I think resort destination is a good way to start. I got 14 seconds, and I would like to say that we also have to look at electrification of our infrastructure. I have a reason for saying that. Thank you very much. It's a really big deal. Thank you so much.
Mr. Roy, let me address a couple of your questions. Sure. First of all, we did hold a workshop, and during the workshop, there was no consultants here. It was Mr. Pardon, the five of us. I think Mr. Lar was out. Very few people showed up, and we brainstormed we spent a good hour and a half brainstorming up on the whiteboard with all our ideas. And then we followed that up with a council meeting where the ideas were collated, brought back to us, and then we each looked at the ideas. And we took into account what you're saying. We're looking at what kind of future we see Beaumont, and that's based on people who elected us and what they've told us that they'd like to see. So there has been, at this point, no consultant involved in the development of our goals. And my server's down.
Well, thank you for answering that. And I do see there's a lot of very good aspects to this plan. I mean, I tend to focus on the criticism, but there's a lot of very good features.
But even
I can
after
tell
these,
that
even
match
after,
my
right, even after these goals are approved, if they're approved tonight, we're still going to be seeing a budget with line item dollar amounts on the different goals and what we're going to do for fiscal year 18. So there will be still plenty of time for you to weigh in on the specific items. I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Sure, thank you very much. And
Okay.
yeah,
And I can't see the list of goals because I'm getting a server not found.
It's also down for 24 when we get there.
I actually have a copy out of mine.
You gotta go to the little button at the bottom here.
Close.
Or you have the PDF version also.
I suppose we're going to have.
I didn't see the list of the items on the PDF.
I should do that. Pull up a tablet, save a lot of trees, right? No paper.
Not necessary.
And it says,
Trees.
Yeah, you know.
You can go back and it should work. There you go. Click it.
okay.
And then go back and here. Try again.
That's okay. We can work it.
Away from the
Well, I'm
podium.
getting ready for 24.
Thank you.
So I want to make sure it's up.
All right. They got job openings at Ursi or Esri, whatever, depending on who it is that's saying it.
I got my background in IT.
All right. Okay, so do we get a staff report on this?
Yes, sir.
I closed public comments, right, at 8:41.
Okay. So our objective tonight really is to look at these council goals. And so we've taken the input that we received, the raw data. We synthesized those down to 6 different goal statements. We hammered on those some more. I sent those out. I got individual responses back, incorporated those. And so what we have for you tonight is really the final version of those. And so the PowerPoint's very simple. So public safety, here it is. Ensure Beaumont maintains its reputation as a safe community and evolves to meet the needs of its residential and commercial growth. And we specified residential and commercial as 2 separate specific types of growth because there's different policing effects and public safety needs pertaining to those different types of development. Quality of life. Enhance and maintain Beaumont's natural beauty and offer parks and recreation services that addresses the needs for every citizen. Again, the critical issue there, and when we talked about the objectives underneath that goal, we talked about really every demographic of our community. We talked a lot about different age groups and different types of needs that were out there. So our objectives would follow on with that. Economic development. Create an economically balanced community to achieve fiscal sustainability. And again, we talked a lot about programming and planning and making sure that as we develop forward in a way that's going to ensure that our community has longevity in its ability to deliver desired services. Community services provide core services to the community that ensure Beaumont remains a desirable place to live, work, and play. Again, the idea of having opportunity, the idea of having the quality of life and types of services that make it, again, a desirable place. Sustainable community, ensure that city resources are maximized and deployed in a manner that meets Beaumont's long-term needs. And then finally, intergovernmental, interagency relationships, work with local agencies to achieve common goals and leverage area resources. And again, when we talk about that, we're talking about all of our local agencies, our county, school district, water board, parks, rec, park district, you know, all the various uses that are out there. You know, one of the things that we've been working through, we've got the WRCOG settlement completed, that agreement's been executed. And so we've been also working to finalize really an overview of the city's financial picture. So as we contemplate these goals and what they mean, I thought it was important to look at the context of where maybe we think the city's current fiscal footing exists. So if you look at fiscal year 2015, ultimately what you see is that the end-of-year fund balance in the general fund was minus $7.4 million. We had a capital reserve of $250,000 at that time. So what that meant, when you looked at the overall unobligated reserve funds that we had in the city on the general fund, we're at 14.8 million in the red. Our insurance reserve was zero funded at minus $1.5 million. Capital reserve, we have a target of trying to get to 2 million on the capital reserve. We had 1.75 million in the hole. So fiscal year 16 rolls around, and you can see now fiscal year 15 are audited numbers. The fiscal year 16 is the 15 to 16 year, and those are our end of year numbers that Milana's finished and she says run reconciliations on. When you look at that year, then we had about $3,050,000 in the black at the end of fiscal year 15-16. So when you apply that to that minus 7.4, we make a little headway. We're now 4.4 million in the hole. When you roll down and look at the 250, we're still there on the capital reserve. So we've reduced our unobligated reserve now to 8.4 million, and we're still sitting at the same reserve deficits on insurance and capital. This year, fiscal year 17, we've run some end-of-year projections, and with the budget adjustments that's made tonight, this is reflected in these numbers now. And so what you see is we're projecting to end this year 2.5 million in the black on the general fund. We also had the $8 million of one-time revenues coming into the city, and so that was $5 million that came from the CFD reimbursement back to the general fund. In addition to that, there was a $3 million payment from RSI as part of their agreement with the city to renegotiate and extend their development agreement. So when you take the 2.5 and that 8 million, you wind up with about 6.1 million of additional cash now in the general fund above when you zeroed out your books. So now you have the opportunity to say, okay, now we can finally set a reserve back for the general fund at $4.6 million. And you can put 1.5 million now and allocate that, designate that to your insurance reserve. So that gets you covered now in your self-insurance program. And then you've got your capital reserve still at 250, which is still underfunded by 1.75 million. So we've now been going through an exercise to try to forecast what our revenue expenditures could look like for 17-18. And so using the directions that council gave us, these goals, looking at the input that we received, and then looking at staffing needs and issues, we're finalizing a budget for the city that on the general fund includes about 31.18 million, 1.9 million. We had established a floor for general fund reserves of 15% of annual operating. So when you look at 17 at 4.6 million, you can see we're about $400,000 to the good in terms of that 15% threshold. So that puts you about 16.4%. By holding that to 4.6, you're sitting right at 15%. So you've got some additional costs that you absorb into 18 potentially. So you've got a delta of about $45,000 on the general fund side. And then again, the capital reserve is still not funded. So the good news is that through luck and through some hard negotiations and through some efforts of the city financially, you've at least gotten to a point of stable on the general fund. But there's still a lot of work to do on capital replacement. There's a lot of other service needs and other things that are out there. But the good news is that you've come to stable, I would say, on the general fund side. So how do we get there? Again, these are just some of the notes that we talked about. So 15 is audited, 2016 is in a year not audited. The contract tonight will audit that and hopefully generate maybe even better news for us than we think we have. 18, we've got preliminary expenditures in, and we're finalizing that budget document to try to get to y'all this week, so you can begin to look at that and look at that. 15% on a reserve target, insurance reserve 1.5, 2 million capital reserve. And one of the issues that we're looking at now is evaluating the 18 numbers that we have for the revenue side and then even the expenditure side for sustainability. now how do we get there? Key factors. Prior years, you had $4 million of operating cuts. So when the chips were down, there were significant cuts made that tallied up to $4 million in that initial year. In addition to that, y'all renegotiated the MOUs with all your bargaining units. That saved you about another $900,000 there. You had some one-time revenues that we've recognized, the CFD transfer to the GF, as well as the RSI payments, the developer payments regarding the development agreement. We had some additional solid waste revenues that we didn't book for the revenue stream in 17. That's about 1.6. Those are allied waste payments that actually come into the city. We had the corresponding payment out, but we didn't have the payment recognized on the revenue side for the general. And then the annualized spending's been coming in below what's been allocated. And your revenue has been performing a little bit better than you had hoped for. So you've probably been you've exceeded, I would say, probably about 4% or so on your revenue, and you've been underspending by about 2% or so on your expenditure, typically 2 to 4%. Now, when you look forward into 18, what you're seeing is regaining membership into TUMF by September of 2017, and that means Measure A revenues start to come in. And so the forecasted revenues for next year was about $866,000. We're estimating you'll only get about 6 months worth of payments if you're in by September, so that's $433, so that's half of that. And then Senate Bill 1 is projected to generate over $10 million of that additional 10-cent gas tax that ultimately will come back, and so this is beginning to prorate in your share. So what RCTC has calculated is that the city's share next year of the SB 1 dollars would be about $226,000. In 18-19, you're projected to see about $750,000, and then it begins to grow up to over $1 million in there. So we'd estimate over the next 5 years you'll see about $4.5 million there. So in the next 5 years, you'll see in TUMF about $4.5 million in TUMF coming to you in the next 5 years. You'll see about $4.5 million. We'd estimate that's Senate Bill 1. That's $9 million of road-specific targeted funds that will come in that will begin to really help get a lot of the older network really mitigated and addressed. So anyway, so that's your financial picture. We'll pick up on that and begin to give you a lot of drill down work. I'm working on a memo that will explain all this to you as part of your budget submission, as well as departmental pages, which will give you an idea about what is staying the same, what we're asking for in terms of enhancements or modifications. And then we'll take it from there and see what kind of damage we've done to your bottom line. So,
could we add on the where is it? It's community. No, it's the quality of life under landscaping. I do agree with Mr. Roy that I'd like to try and focus on indigenous species. If we could add that piece there, I'd appreciate it. Unless anyone has an objection to that.
The detailed part.
And that's under Section 2, Quality of Life, A3 or A.III, landscaping. So do we have any questions or concerns? So we need to approve. I'll move to approve the, what do you want me to do? Approve the city council goal statements.
A question, Mayor.
Sure.
Question, Mr. Barton, were you going to look at that Thursday?
Yes, yes, sir. I was going to follow up with that. So the other issues we talked about, the workshop, and I picked a date to throw out to you that we actually had the LEAC recognition dinner that night. So I want to see if there's a way to back it up to Wednesday the 26th, because I'm assuming we'd have to do an evening budget workshop.
Please.
Unless somebody wants to play hooky from work. And what a great.
I don't mind if someone's going to pay me. The 26th is fine for me.
I'm fine for 26th.
Would you like to start at, what time would you like to start?
12 noon?
Okay.
I'm just joking.
He'll get all the preliminary work done for us, and we'll be here at 5.
5 o'clock? So
5 works for me. Can you make it by 5, Mark?
My calendar is acting up. Give me a second.
Okay.
All right.
Say the 26th at 5?
That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, hold
Okay,
on a
that's
second.
fine with me.
Is everyone up here going to LEAC on the 27th?
I am.
You got us all down? I guess we're all going.
Okay.
The 26th? Yes, we're good.
5 p.m. Okay.
5 p.m.
It'll be the best meeting you've ever had.
5 p.m. Okay.
I will not be here on the 26th, just for the record.
What? No, that's not possible. Y'all gotta be here. Go.
So what do we decide?
5 o'clock on the 26th.
Budget?
25th?
26th.
26th.
Budget meeting, right? That's what it is?
Yep, budget workshop.
Budget workshop meeting.
All right. Item 24. RFP for Civic Plaza facility needs and downtown.
Do you want to finish? I'm sorry. We didn't finish the motion on that one. You made a motion. Do we want to?
Oh, okay, so, I made the motion, but we didn't have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you for keeping this on track.
No problem. And this was to approve the city council goal statements with the addition and the workshop scheduled for Wednesday, April 26th at 5 p.m. Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Roscoe?
Aye.
Councilmember Lara?
Yep.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes.
Thank you.
Item 24, RFP for Civic Plaza facility needs and downtown beautification study.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight's an RFP for needs assessment of the Civic Plaza, which is this entire campus, as well as a downtown beautification study for some of the streetscapes within the downtown area. The Civic Center Plaza serves a wide variety of functions. The functions housed at this building include the council chambers, administration offices, planning, public works, utility billing, animal control, and transit. And we have employee parking, we have public parking, the transit buses are also parked at this campus. As you may well know, there's been no significant changes made to the Civic Center Plaza since I've started working here 11 years ago, and probably another 10 or 15 in addition to that, except for repainting some of the walls and adding some pictures to the walls and maybe redoing the floors and the carpet.
Tearing down a wall, too.
Yeah, and tearing down the wall on the entrance to the back of the building. Thank you, Councilman Orozco. There's now a great need to evaluate where the city's going to be moving in the future with these facilities and with other facilities to meet the future needs of a growing community. The assessment will consider the use of all the existing buildings on the campus and propose modifications as needed. The study will also consider the city's current needs for facilities, including the police department, as well as the needs at ultimate build-out. So we envision working with the selected firm to meet with each of the department heads to identify what facility needs in terms of parking, also staffing needs in terms of offices, equipment, meeting space, etc., as well as meeting with the city council, the treasurer, and the clerk's office to identify our current needs today, as well as where our needs are going to be into the future for ultimate build out, because you don't want to build facilities now that aren't going to have a lifespan of 40 to 50 years. The study will also involve a downtown beautification concept and monumentation locations. As part of that assessment, themes and concepts for landscaping and beautification of cityscapes or streetscapes along the downtown will develop to match the Civic Center Plaza theme in the buildings here. Those should be on 6th Street, and we're thinking between Beaumont Avenue and Palm. Beaumont Avenue itself, from almost the off-ramps and on-ramps to the I-10 freeway up to 8th Street, just to start. And that should get us started at this point in time, and maybe some of these interior streets, so Orange and Magnolia that surround the Civic campus, and possibly 7th as well. So that's really all the quick staff report. The attached draft RFP has been attached for your review, and staff does recommend that City Council approve the attached RFP and direct staff to publish that to solicit proposals. And we'll bring back those proposals to council once we receive them. Thank you.
Just a quick comment. This is, as you said, it's for long-term, we're considering build-out, but it also is something that we discussed in the first task force meeting, the subcommittee meeting on the general plan, was a concept like this. So this will, I think, be good timing to get this done so we have something, tangible to discuss in the general plan as far as the downtown area goes. Any questions or comments?
I have public comment also.
Okay, open public comments at 9:01.
Ron Roy?
I just was going to say, is there going to be public input? How does that work for the young? Okay, just kind of like revisiting the same issue, and kind of, sorry about that. But community input on this downtown beautification. So is there going to be community input?
It's going to all be done, I would think, through the general plan discussion over the next 2 years.
Okay, and I noticed on your website, you do have things where you're scheduling the meetings and stuff like that, so.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so that was my question, and I hope there's a public meeting as well, where you can talk.
Oh, yeah.
The community can talk about it. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
that was it, thanks.
Would we do anything outside of the view of the public? I mean, we would
Plain
be,
vigilant card here.
all right.
I'll give you
I think those days are over that we can ever do anything outside the view of the public, so.
Hello.
All right. So, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Ms. Carroll? Okay.
When I'm reading through this, it mentions that the on and off ramps, et cetera, are going to be included as part of the overall aesthetic in both the examination and the planning of this. And to connect actually to one of the things Mr. Roy said, when we're not that attractive from the highway as a city to get off the highway. So the ramps are part of that, and I appreciate you mentioning them specifically. But also that metal tin sound wall that goes down by part of Beaumont Avenue, just past, I think it's Cherry Valley Automotive, and some of the other things. You can make a pretty exit ramp, but if the rest of so it isn't that they can fix that because that'll involve Caltrans, but I really think that more of the look needs to be considered in addition to the ramp. You can't just make the ramp pretty. You've got to make sure that what leads up to the ramp doesn't look really bad. So however you want to consider that as a component of that. And I noticed it is in our goals that we're looking at art as a component for the community. But I would like to also make sure that when we do this kind of a study, that we also look at art as a component for the community, because I believe that's as much of a component as a park or pretty much anything else that we decide to do for quality of life and the community. So I just want to bring that up because it often gets hidden down in a few layers, and when it's hidden down too far, it gets totally forgotten. It's not something that we've ever considered when we look at things before, whether there's going to be a piece of public art in the middle of a new civic center or something like that. I think that those things actually speak really well of a city when they're integrated into the original concept. So I appreciate that.
I agree.
Mr. Martinez.
Mr. Warsinski, my question has to do with when you say beautification landscaping developed to match the Civic Center building. We had talked about in this general plan subcommittee about different themes that we might be able to incorporate in. What is Beaumont? Who are we? Can you just clarify what that means by match? We're not looking at building everything around.
We meant in terms of just drafting up this quick RFP was whatever theme we come off of, and I believe if it was up to me and what we would like to do is match the theme of this historical building throughout the campus. If you walk around just this block right here, you're going to see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different architecture types on 5 different buildings. This is the only one, in my opinion, that should be matched. The rest of them can be altered with facades or parapets or roof lines that could be altered. So when we wanted to match the streetscape, we don't want to do something that's modern. No modernized railings or things like that. We want pedestrian-friendly landscaping, maybe some decorative concrete and some landscaping that works in conjunction with our front out here, using landscaping like the speaker spoke about before, drought tolerant, hopefully indigenous, that matches the theme here, not putting out palm trees down 6th Street that would not match the theme of this area in the plaza.
I have little reservations about that. Incorporate the civic center into the plan, I can see. I just don't want to be too, I mean, I don't want to have something come up already where there's a decision made on how it's going to be or look before.
No, not at all. What we're going to do, and I'm glad you brought that up so we can kind of confine what we're going to be doing in the study, is this is just going to be a quick look at the buildings, whether they're structurally sound, whether this building can actually take a second story or not, whether the large building, Building E, can take a second story or not, whether it's feasible to actually improve the insides of that building. Can we modify the outside of those concrete walls to allow for nice windows like this? Maybe not. So is it a really good building to create office space in? Maybe not. And if that happens, then maybe demolition and rebuilding a building in its place is the best viable option. So we're hoping to get a firm in here. Typically you'll have an engineer, an architect, and hopefully a general contractor working together as one firm with subs, doing studies on each of these buildings to give us an idea of different options that can be performed on the entire campus, all these buildings, as well as different themes and concepts for the streetscapes. So we won't have just one at the end of the day. We should have options for council and the public to choose, and then move forward on the design as well as move forward on the planning, like the mayor had brought up during the general plan process. This initial work where we know kind of where we stand today is going to be a great leaping place to jump into the general plan update on where we want to define the general or the downtown specific plan or create themes or design
That's where
standards.
I was going with that. So thank you for the flexibility. I think that addressed it.
Anybody else? All right, I entertain a motion.
I move that we approve item 24.
I'll second that.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Orozco?
Aye.
Councilmember Lara?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Carroll?
Yes.
Mayor White?
Yes. So we'll move on to council reports. Mayor Pro Tem Carroll.
I attended the T-Now meeting. We're going to have to add a room, I think, pretty soon. It's actually, we have the designation of the largest T-Now and most active T-Now meeting in Riverside County. And we pretty much fill that room. And then there's also a back row. So we actually had a great turnout, and we're developing and defining some new goals and subcommittees with the T-Now, and I'll report that back to you in the future. And then I went over to Four Seasons because Josh, our neighborhood watch officer that was representing the city, was given a pretty melancholy goodbye from Four Seasons because he is retiring from the force, and that means that they'll need a replacement. It'll be difficult to replace him. They couldn't have done a better job of sending him off. You would have gotten a kick out of it. They planted a homeless person by the front doorstep of Four Seasons so that Josh, when he pulled up to come into the meeting, got all upset over a homeless person hanging out in Four Seasons, which was a great way to start the meeting. And we spoke, I gave a few minutes of talk about how much he meant to both Four Seasons and to the city, and that for Four Seasons, he really did have the spirit of a true beat officer. He really made sure that everybody in Four Seasons felt comfortable and were able to come to him and with whatever their concerns were. And he really took everything that happened in that community to heart through Neighborhood Watch. So it was a very wonderful day, except for that Josh left. Other than that, it was great.
Okay, Mr. Laura.
Yes, just a reminder that Saturday, April 29th from 10 to 2, Banning will be hosting a free disaster survival expo. They've got 2 guest speakers out there. Also, going over the budget information and talking about the funds that we're working on. I just want to thank the city staff for their dedication and their efforts. I know they're small but mighty, the few and the proud. I just appreciate their efforts, their attitude, everything they've gone through these past couple of years with us, and just wanted to say, give them my gratitude and thanks. That's all.
Mr. Martinez.
I just want to thank staff and Mr. Parton for all the hard work that people are doing to get this budget going. We finally feel like we are running a city that needs the right way, and it's very refreshing. And the people that I've talked to have commented on some of the things they've already seen and heard happening, and they're beginning to feel comfortable and confident. And I thank you for that, because that's what the community needs, and I think we're definitely on the right direction. So thank you again for all those working so hard.
Mr. Orozco?
Yeah, just want to. I don't want to repeat everybody, but I think we got to give congratulations to our staff here, and
They have been.
The hard work. It's been a 2-year, more than a 2-year task for everybody, and I know you guys tell us every day that it's all of us up here, but in fact, it's every single one of you guys. And, from the maintenance to community services to the admin staff here to our police department, coming together and making the tough decisions and cuts and still doing what's being asked for us to do service wise, and that it takes a lot. I mean, and then having to go home and deal with family too. So we appreciate the hard work and the hours and the contributions that you guys make to our city. Been hearing a lot of good feedback from our community in terms of what we've been doing, and we've been tackling things. And the big thing, of course, is the WRCOG settlement that we've been working on, and people have been waiting for that. And I know it's been very quiet in terms of what we're doing with that. And to finally have the opportunity to put that out there, the community has some sense of relief in terms of that. And then hearing the news of what we're planning to do in terms of hoping to come up with a plan to look at our citywide Belarus relief, making efforts, no guarantees, but just taking an opportunity to now look at those concerns. So I want to thank you guys for that. On the Economic Development Committee, we'll be bringing to council some goals that we've come up with and articulated, and I know Kyle will bring that hopefully. I don't think it made it to this meeting, but we'll bring that to an agenda item and hopefully present that to you and what we've come up with. And we've want to congratulate the Economic Development Committee, because through all this, they knew what was going on and the concerns that the city has been having with budgets and stuff. And our goal is to continue moving forward, trying to align ourselves with a lot of the things that have been said in terms of the last item here that had to do with the RFP for the Civic Plaza. There's been discussions on that and trying to align ourselves with what the anticipation is going to be moving forward. So I hope these goals and mission that that the committee has come up with you know, the council take an opportunity to look at them and kind of make a decision moving forward to give the committee now an opportunity to move forward with these goals and start tackling them one by one. So we'll present that at our next council meeting as an agenda item.
Okay. I too want to talk about the staff and the sacrifices you guys have made. We get a lot of credit for cutting $4 million out of the budget, but it didn't affect any of my income, didn't affect my family life. I wasn't asked to put out more at work for any of these, the cuts that we made. So I do appreciate the sacrifices that everyone's made. I also agree. I have a friend on the Ukaipa Council who always asks me how things are going over here, and I always tell him I just hope one day that we get to vote on things like performing arts centers and beautification projects, and so we finally got to start talking about those kinds of things as opposed to jail time and raids and lawsuits and all that good stuff. Just so everyone knows, the Cherry Cup event is this weekend. It's going to be huge. And I didn't say that like Trump, but it's going to be big. There's going to be a lot of, the last couple of years, there have been, restaurants have all been full, long lines. So, and this year they have, I want to say 40 teams coming out. It may be more than that. And they're going to be having games at the high school, at the sports park, and I believe at the middle school as well. So, just beware of the traffic as well as the local businesses. So it'll be really good for Beaumont. And then finally, I sort of want to give you guys somewhat of an update on transit. With Elizabeth and Todd's help, we've been opening a channel of communication between Mayor Moyer, myself, and then Elizabeth's counterpart over in Banning to try and work through some of the issues that are coming up so that we can move forward with a more of a cooperative arrangement between the two cities, and I think we're making some progress on that. And that's all that I had. So we'll move on to the city treasurer report.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, and the city manager report.
I was going to give kudos to Mayor Pro Tem Carol. She mentioned her tea now. What she didn't mention is she's been providing fantastic lunches at those tea now meetings. And something gourmet.
I cook them at home every week. No.
It's amazing.
It rotates among the cities, so.
Special brownies.
Yeah.
We can do those now.
Don't start that rumor, please.
And then Cherry Cup, what did you say, Mayor? There's going to be 1 million people in town?
Yeah.
The Cherry Cup.
Easily a million.
That's easy. Yeah. Give or take. Plus or minus.
Exactly.
One thing to...
It'll be a much bigger Cherry Cup than when he was mayor.
Thank you.
Can you say?
Point that out.
Know where to go it up?
That's the size of the cup, okay?
So on the general plan update, we have had an online portal, I guess, survey, kind of trying to get some information from folks in terms of some dates and times that might work for meetings. So I think we're up to 300 responses at this point. So it's actually kind of neat. Rebecca's worked up a messaging that's going to go out with our next utility bills. And so actually on the envelope itself, it's going to say, hey, on the front, you'll see a notice, hey, come to the website, log in, let us know what meeting time that works for you. And on the back, those little blurb on the back with our kind of city emblem on it. So hopefully people look at it, be a little something special. So hopefully it'll drive people in. But we really are looking to have a community meeting here in June. So we're trying to schedule something, in that area. So anyway, so you'll be seeing that, and hopefully you'll get some good response from people as they're looking at their bills. Mr. Sherwood had suggested that we put something on there that would get their attention, like late notice, on those agenda bills. So we figure we'll wait till the second mailing.
Put your money in.
That's it.
I have a quick comment. From the discussion we had with Mr. Pinckney at the beginning of the meeting, we probably need itemized items under the city manager's report, as much as you can. I mean, I don't want to limit you to just that. We'll not talk about, issues that aren't there. But if you know, like the two that we had, the updates to, if we put those on there, then we can talk about them.
So let me clarify that. The city manager can report on his activities, as you do during your reports, as I do during my reports. And the Brown Act specifically provides for that, for officials to report briefly on their activities. But that shouldn't be used as an opportunity to engage in a substantive discussion and give and take back and forth. So if there's an item that's a substantive item that you want to be able to ask questions and have a back and forth on, if it's just listed underneath the city manager report, it gives you that option to have a more drill down discussion about it. So
Perfect. We have to go to the city clerk report.
It'll be brief.
Okay.
I attended the City Clerk Association of California seminar that they have every year, and I was awarded a scholarship to do so from that organization, so they're paying for my entrance fee, thanks to Nicole, who sent in the paperwork to get the scholarship for me, so I appreciate that. It was very interesting, very informative, met lots of very nice people, and I hope I learned a few things.
Keep all your records, okay?
Yes.
And now we'll move to the city attorney report.
briefly, you have in your agenda packet at item 25 a list of pending litigation. I went ahead and took the WRCOG case off the list because, as you know, the city and WRCOG have agreed to settle that case. So we'll be filing the dismissal of the appeal and then also dismissal of the case the city filed against RCTC and RTA. Then the next matter that is on the pending litigation list is the Oak Tree Alternative Care. I've already reported to you that the city was the prevailing party and was awarded its attorney fees in that case. And so that will be coming off the list shortly. And then we also have the Rosemary Morgan versus the City of Beaumont case that's preparing for trial. We have the HUP cases. And then we have the Monique Hernandez, and that case again is a case that's been filed by the city's insurers against the manufacturer. That's a dispute between them. Not the city isn't really exposed in that case. And then Charles Peters, DBA Pioneer Mobile Village versus City of Beaumont. That case is at the pleading stage. And then we have the CEQA lawsuits involving the Hidden Canyon project. That's still on the list. Osario versus the City of Beaumont is early on at the pleading stages. And then the last item, the city mortgage matter, is a very minor matter where the city had a lien on a piece of property, and it's a foreclosure action, so it's not one of any significance to the city. So that's a report on the litigation matters.
Mr. Pinckney, I have a question regarding the appeal stages of the HUP cases.
Yes.
Can you sort of like who's doing the appealing and what that means as far as the appeal stage? If you can't, then I understand. But.
Well, the city's. I don't want to give you inaccurate information. I didn't really prepare to go into detail on those cases tonight. But the city and the association, whenever they're successful, the HUPs appeal the decision. So.
Okay. So this is likely an appeal by the HUPs. These three.
Yeah, and I categorize all the HUP cases as. We put it under one item, right? Because this individual just seems to be litigious.
Okay.
And so I just put those all under one item.
Great. Are there any other questions or comments for Mr. Pinckney? All right. And future agenda items, any suggestions?
Just the one I mentioned in terms of bringing the agenda item for economic development, goals and objectives.
So I think as far as that being an agenda item, we can just have a standing reports from the Economic Development Committee. Doesn't need a consensus from council to become an agenda item, correct?
No, it doesn't.
So we can just say for the future, reports from those two committees, as long as they are agenda items, we don't need to come to council one meeting and say, do we have a consensus to put this on the next meeting?
Right. You
That
just
that
leave
was
it
an
as a
issue that
standing
came up
item.
earlier. Okay. All right. So with nothing else, we'll adjourn the meeting tonight at 9:25.